Tonight, we're slipping into the haunted side of Texas, the places locals whisper about, the spots that feel wrong even in broad daylight, and become something else entirely after dark. From lonely bridges where footsteps follow you, to forgotten cemeteries where voices answer back, get ready for 4 real ghost locations in Texas, with nighttime encounters. But before we begin, there's one thing most viewers mess up. They watch, they get creeped out, and then they leave without subscribing. And when they do, they miss the most disturbing true encounters, the ones only the bravest ever hear. Don't be one of them. Hit that subscribe button now, because tonight is just a glimpse into the haunted map of Texas, and the things waiting in the dark aren't done with us yet. So, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Tell me in the comments, because wherever you're sitting here, the night is only getting started, and these 4 locations are just the beginning. Now, turn off the lights if you dare, and let's step straight into the darkness. I don't pick up riders from the lake anymore. My name's Cody Ellison, I'm from Terrell, out past Dallas, and I work as a rideshare driver and at a tire shop when they got hours for me. And I need you to listen to me all the way through before you decide I am crazy, because I have been thinking that about myself every day since that night, and it has not helped one bit, so just let me get this out how it comes. All right? Man, because if I stop, I am not starting again. It was a Thursday. I remember that because Wednesday nights are slow and I had gone home early, but Thursday was warmer. One of those stupid Texas spring nights where the air feels thick even in the dark, and I told myself I would push late and make rent a little less painful. I rolled out of bed around noon because I had been up late the night before, had cold leftover kolaches and a gas station coffee from the Allsups down the road. The coffee tasted burnt and sweet at the same time because I dumped those little creamers in it. I threw on my blue polo with a little grease stain near the pocket that will not come out no matter what soap I use. Some faded jeans, my old red cap with the tire shop logo on it. I checked my phone and the balance made my stomach twist. So I told myself, all right, Cody, you are gonna drive until 3 in the morning. No excuses. I remember the time I clocked into the app. It said 5:47 p.m. exactly. Sun still up. I did the usual loop, Terrell into Mesquite, then up toward Dallas proper, picking up students and office people, and a couple of folks going to Deep Ellum. Nothing special, just the normal stuff. Talk about traffic, about the Rangers losing again, about gas prices. The car smelled like that cheap pine tree air freshener I get in the 3-pack, and the engine was making that little ticking noise when I idled too long, but that was normal too. It always does that now. I ate Whataburger in the car around 9. Burger, getting that lukewarm thing it does when you answer too many pings while you are trying to eat. Fries getting soggy. I remember potassium ketchup on my fingers and wiping it on a napkin. I still swear I saw on the floor the next day in a place it should not have been. But I'll get to that. Just let me go in order, because if I jump ahead, it feels worse somehow, like time is not straight anymore, and that is part of the problem already. Around midnight, it slowed down. People back in their apartments and houses, bars not out yet. I thought about calling it, just going back to Terrell, but then the app dangled that little extra earning bonus if I stayed on until 3, and I needed that, so I kept driving. I set the destination filter to hover near White Rock Lake, because sometimes you get bar spillover or late night people wanting to go back to the suburbs from there. Usually decent trips. I pulled into one of those parking areas near the lake around 1:30 a.m., windows cracked. Radio low, just some old country station playing songs I know by heart but do not actually listen to. You know how that is. Like background hum, so it is not just your own breathing in there with you. I checked my messages, scrolled, nothing important. I remember looking at the lake, how flat and black it looked. No waves because there was no wind, just that heavy still air. The parking lot lights buzzing that high sound you only notice when it is late. And there were a couple of cars scattered around, but no one walking. No kids, no couples. Just that kind of dead quiet you get when everyone's smart is home. I told myself, 1 more ride from around here. 2 at most. Then I remember the time because I checked. It was 2:38 a.m. when the ping came in. Pick up near the trail by the lake. Pin right on one of those little parking turns that looks out over the water. The name on the app was just Anna, and no rating yet. Blank profile picture, which usually means new user or someone who does not care. I almost skipped it, but it was close, and the fare estimate looked decent. So I hit accept, put the car in drive, and rolled down toward the pin. I could see my headlights sweeping over the little wooden posts they put at the edge of the lot, the gravel crunching under the tires. I swear to God, man, there was no one there when I first pulled in. Just the lake and those lights and an empty bench. I know that because I was scanning. You get used to looking for people walking toward you with that hitch in their step, like they already feel guilty for making you wait. I slowed anyway, because sometimes they walk out from the trees or from the little trail. I glanced at the app again. It said, arriving 2:44 a.m., and the little bar at the top was still blue, waiting. I looked back up, and she was standing there by the passenger door. I did not see her walk up. I did not see her cross in front of the car. There was no shadow moving or anything. She was just there, in the spill of my headlights, on the passenger side, not right at the door, a couple of steps back, like she was still deciding if she wanted to get in. Medium height, long hair, stuck wet to her neck and the sides of her face. Pale in that way you get when you stay in the water too long. She had on this light dress thing. Could not tell the color right in the headlights, kind of washed out, and it was soaked, dripping. You could see water tracking down her legs, bare feet on the gravel. That is the thing that stuck with me. No shoes, just skin on that cold ground, and the hem of the dress stuck to her knees. I rolled down the window a little more and leaned over. "You Anna?" I asked, trying to sound normal, like this was just another drunk person by the lake. She nodded once, quick, like she was embarrassed, and her voice when she spoke was soft, kind of hoarse, like she had been talking for hours or screaming earlier that night. "Yeah, sorry. I did not think it would be this cold," she said. But the air was not that cold. The app chimed to tell me to start the trip. I unlocked the doors and reached over to hit the button for the back seat because I do not like people sitting up front that late, safer with them behind you. I heard the door open, heard it shut, felt the shift of weight as she got in, but something about it felt delayed, like the sound of the door did not line up with the way the car moved. I know that sounds weird, but I recognized it even then. Just a tiny hitch, like watching a video that is half a second out of sync with the audio. You can still follow, but your brain tags it as wrong. I started the ride. The app set the destination automatically, some address in Lakewood, neat little older neighborhood on the other side of the lake, the kind of place with big trees and porches and those house numbers that glow on the curb. "All right, Lakewood," I said, kind of half to her, half to myself, and I put the car in drive and pulled out. For a minute, it was just normal rideshare silence. I could hear her breathing behind me, short and shallow, like she was trying not to take up space. I caught the smell of lake water, that sort of muddy, cold smell, nothing gross, just there, stronger than I would have expected. The heater was on low, because I had gotten chilled sitting still, and I pictured it drying her off, steaming the wet out of that dress. I asked the usual, just to fill the air, "You okay back there? Long night or what?" And she answered, but not right away. She took a breath first, and there was this little shake in it, like she was trying not to cry. "Can you just drive?" she said. "Please." And that last word hit me in the back of the neck. Man, like someone tapping me with a cold finger. I said, "Sure, yeah, no problem. We will be there in 10 minutes. I checked the time. It was 2:49 a.m. We rolled along the road by the lake, no other cars, just my headlights sliding over the guardrails and the trees. I could see the dark shape of the water to my right every now and then. No waves, no boats, nothing. The radio was murmuring some old song, and I turned it down even more because I felt like it did not belong. In that moment, I do not know. It is like when you walk into a room and someone is praying. You feel wrong talking loud. It felt like that, quiet, thick, like the night had a weight. I checked the rearview mirror to be sure she was buckled, and I almost said her name, Anna. But I stopped because the way she was looking out the window made my throat go tight. She was not looking at the view like people do. She was staring at the glass itself, like the surface, chin down a little, eyes fixed, and her cheeks were wet, but I could not tell if it was water or tears or both. Her hair was still clinging to her neck, and she was holding her hands in her lap, fingers laced, skin so pale that the knuckles looked gray in the light. She must have felt me looking because her eyes cut up and met the mirror, just for a second, and I swear to God they looked darker than they should have in that light. Not evil or anything, just deep, like she had not slept in a long time. I looked away quick, back to the road, told myself I was being dramatic. We drove in silence for a couple of minutes like that, just the sound of the engine and the tires and that faint hum from the dashboard. Then she spoke again, soft but urgent. "Can you slow down a little?" she said. I glanced at the speedometer. I was barely doing 35 in a 40. "We are good," I said. "I am not speeding." And she shook her head. I could see it in the mirror, that movement, hair sticking to her jaw. "No, not because of that," she said. "He does not like it when people drive too fast here." And the way she said he made my stomach drop. Man, it was not like someone talking about a cop or a dad or a boyfriend. It was just this empty word sitting there. "Who?" I asked. Because of course I did. Because my brain wanted something it could understand. Some real person, some explanation. She did not answer right away, and the air in the car felt colder. I turned the heat up a notch without thinking. "Look in the mirror," she whispered. And my first thought was, she meant rear view, like maybe someone really was following us, some creeper from the park or whatever. So I looked up, quick, ready to see headlights or a shape behind us, but there was nothing, just the empty road, the faint glow of the dash lights reflected in the back window. My own face drawn tight. "I do not see anybody," I said, and my voice came out thinner than I wanted. She made this little sound that might have been a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Not that mirror," she said, "the side one, the one that shows the water." I do not know why that made something in me want to put my foot down and floor it, to get away from the lake as fast as I could, but I did what she asked. I shifted my eyes to the right, to the passenger side mirror, where you usually just see the edge of your car and whatever is in the next lane. Only there was no next lane, just the guardrail and the dark line of the water beyond. And at first that is all I saw. Darkness, the faint suggestion of the rail, the little printed warning about objects may be closer than they appear, and then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw the reflection of something on the surface of the water. It was wrong, man. The lake was still, no wind, no boats, no nothing. So there should not have been any movement, no pattern, but in the narrow strip of water the mirror caught, I could see ripples, tight little circles, like someone had just stepped in or out right there. Only there was no one at the edge, nothing on the shore, just that motion, spreading, and in the center of it, in the mirror, there was a shape that looked like a head barely above the surface, hair slicked against it, no features I could make out, just the curve where a face should be if someone was trying to keep their nose and mouth above water, the kind of thing your brain fights, wants to turn into a trick of light, a reflection from my own headlights, something explainable, except the lights were pointing forward, and the angle did not make sense, and the ripples did not match the speed we were driving. They were too slow, like it was moving separate from us. I blinked hard, looked at the actual lake out the window, nothing, black, and still looked back at the mirror and the shape was closer, filling more of that little rectangle, like we had slowed down and it had not. "You see him now?" she asked, voice barely above a breath, and I could hear that she already knew the answer. "I do not know what I am looking at," I said, which was true but also a lie, because my body knew, every hair on my arms was standing up, my fingers were tight on the wheel. I realized I had eased off the gas without meaning to, speed dropping, the car coasting. "Do not stop," she said, suddenly sharp. "Do not stop here, whatever you do." And something in the way she said it made me want to obey, like when you see brake lights suddenly and your foot goes down before you think. I swallowed, my throat dry, even though the car smelled wetter and wetter, like the water was inside now, like it was in the vents, in the seats. "Who is that?" I asked, and this time my voice shook. I am not proud of that, but it did. She let out a slow breath. "He waits." She said he waits for the cars and the lights and the ones who do not pay attention. He waits for someone to open the door for him. I told myself she was drunk, or high, or messing with me. Maybe she had some messed up ex and this was her way of talking about him, but my eyes kept going back to that mirror, to the shape that should not have been there, that was now not just a head, I could see the line of shoulders, the hint of arms moving under the surface. Not swimming, just kind of drifting, keeping pace with us in the reflection, even when the actual lake out the window still looked like a solid sheet of oil. I snapped my eyes forward, refused to look again, hands shaking on the wheel now. "Listen," I said, trying to sound firm, like I had some control. "We are almost at your place, so let's just get you home, all right?" I checked the navigation, little blue line curving away from the lake soon. A couple more minutes and we would be on streets with houses and lights and other cars. "He follows," she said, but quieter now, like she was sinking into herself. "If the doors open, he will get in, and then you are his driver." That is what they do not understand. They think it is just the lake, but it is the road, too. I wanted to ask who they was, how she knew, all of that, but my mouth would not form the words. I felt like if I let this turn into a conversation, if I treated it like a real thing, it would become one. So I clamped my jaw and just drove. Watched the seconds tick on the dash, watched the distance to destination shrink. 4 minutes, 3, the app said, arrival 2:57 a.m. That should be the end of it, right? Drop her off, shake it off as some weird late-night loopy ride, something to tell a buddy about later. Except while I was watching the map, I felt the temperature in the car drop hard, like someone opened a freezer behind my seat. My breath did not quite fog, but it felt like it wanted to, skin prickling under my shirt. And I became aware that I could not hear her breathing anymore, which is not something you usually pay attention to. But when it stops, your brain notices, I realized the radio was completely silent, even though I had not turned it off. The display said it was still playing, but there was no sound. Just this low electrical hum, like standing under a big power line. And under that, something else, a wet sound, slow and steady, drip, 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 like water hitting the floor. I knew right away it was coming from behind me. I did not want to look. Every part of me did not want to, but I had to. You understand? I had to. So I flicked my eyes up to the rearview mirror again. The back seat was empty. Her seatbelt was still pulled out a little, like it had been used and not fully retracted. Dark patch on the fabric where it crossed, where her chest would have been. And the seat itself was soaked, darker than the other side. Water pooled in the dip, where someone sits, and it was dripping steadily onto the floor mat. I could see my own little pine tree air freshener hanging there, its reflection in the wet spot, shaking slightly with the car's motion, but there was no one there. No sign of her, no door opening sound, no weight shift, nothing, just that water falling in slow drops. My hands jerked and I almost swerved, brought the car back into the lane hard, heart pounding so loud it felt like it was beating in my throat. "Anna," I said, or tried to, but it came out cracked like a teenager's voice. I twisted in my seat for real this time, eyes off the road for a second that felt like forever. And it was the same as the mirror had shown. Empty, just water, just the outline of where a body had been, turning the cheap cloth a darker shade. I stomped the brakes without meaning to, the seatbelt digging into my shoulder. The car lurched. Tires squealed a little on the damp part of the road where the dew was starting to settle. No one behind me. Thank God, no one to rear end us. Or me, I guess. Just this spinning feeling in my head, like I was still moving even though the car had stopped. I sat there in the middle of the lane. Hazard lights clicking by themselves. I do not remember turning them on, but they were blinking. Little orange flashes on the dashboards of the empty world, and I felt the urge to look at the passenger side mirror again. It clawed at me, the same way a bad thought does when you are trying to sleep, saying, "Look, look, look." I held on as long as I could, knuckles white, breath coming fast now. Then I lost and glanced over. In the mirror, the shape in the water was right up against where the edge of the road should have been, too close, like the lake had reached for us, and the head was tilted in a way that suggested a face looking up at the car, at me, even though I still could not see eyes or a mouth. Just this pale oval with darker streaks where hair or something else clung to it, and the ripples around it were hitting the shore that did not exist in the real world view. Because when I tore my eyes away from the mirror and looked out the real window, there was the same guardrail, the same distance, no water right there, certainly nothing that could be touching the car. My sense of space just went sideways, like reality had layers and they were not lining up. A horn blared somewhere behind me, snapped me out of it. A truck or something coming up on a car that had just stopped in the middle of the road with its hazards on. I shook myself, found the gas, rolled forward, heart still hammering. I did not look in any mirrors this time. I kept my eyes locked straight ahead until the app chirped angrily, rerouting, like I had messed up a turn, while there was literally no turn to miss. The little blue line on the screen flickered, glitched, jumped a bit, then settled, now saying arrival at 3:01 a.m. instead. That is when I should have canceled the ride, ended it, called support, gone home, anything except what I did, which was just keep going like a robot, like a good little driver who does not want to lose his bonus. I pulled into Lakewood eventually. Streets narrower, gardens with those little wind chimes that tinkled even without wind, porch lights on timers or maybe late night readers inside, and my car felt like it did not belong there anymore, like I was tracking something into these nice, quiet houses, something that should have stayed by the lake, the seat behind me squishing softly with every bump as the pooled water shifted. The app told me to turn onto this tree-lined street, old oaks forming a kind of tunnel overhead, shadows thick between the trunks, and then it said, "You have arrived," as I rolled up to a small brick house with a sagging porch swing and light shining through the front windows. A normal place. Man, that is what got me. Just so normal. Little ceramic bird on the railing, potted plant by the door. Nothing scary about it at all, except for the way my stomach twisted when I saw the house number match the one on the screen, like confirmation that this was real, that all that had happened on the way actually had a destination. I put the car in park, my hand hovering over the end ride button, and then I remembered there was no one to say, "We are here to." No one to thank for the ride, no one fumbling for their bag or their phone. It was just me and that wet patch and the steady drip on the floor mat. I looked at the fare, part of my mind still thinking stupid things like how much tip I might get if this person was generous. Then I shook my head, told myself she had gotten out somewhere back there and I had just not heard or felt it. That maybe she had bailed when I slowed down and I was too freaked by the mirror thing to notice. Even as I thought it, I knew it was not true, because the app still showed her as a passenger, the little in progress bar still glowing, no door open alert, no ride ended, everything still in that unfinished state. I do not know what made me do it. Maybe I wanted to hand her off to someone else, some parent or roommate, make them responsible for whatever this was. But I got out of the car and walked up to the door. My shoes squeaked on the concrete steps, wet sound that made me think of that drip, drip, drip behind me. And when I glanced back at the car, I swear I saw a faint shimmer in the back window, like condensation from inside. Even though the night was not that cold, I blinked it away and knocked. It took a minute, long enough for me to start to feel stupid, standing there at 3 in the morning on some stranger's porch because of a ghost passenger and a wet car, and I almost turned to go when I heard the chain rattle and the deadbolt twist. The door opened just enough for the porch light to spill out, and an older man peered through the gap, maybe late 70s, thin white hair, lines on his face that said he had seen plenty of life. He squinted past me at the car with its hazards still blinking, then focused on me. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice rough with sleep, but polite under it. "Sir, I am sorry to bother you this late," I said, hands up a little to show I meant no harm. "I am a driver. My app sent me here. I was supposed to be dropping off an Anna." I glanced at my phone to be sure I had the name right, like maybe I had mixed it up, but there it was in black and white. "Yeah, Anna. She got in my car by the lake, and then I faltered, because what was I supposed to say? That she had vanished and turned into water?" He watched me struggle, eyes narrowing slightly, then he sighed, a long, tired sound, and opened the door a little wider, just enough that I could see into the hallway behind him, wood floors, family pictures on the wall, a lamp casting a warm pool of light in a living room off to the side. "You are not the first," he said, and something in my chest went cold again, like the air from the car had followed me onto the porch. "Not the first what?" I asked, voice small now, the way you talk in hospitals and churches. "Not the first driver they send here," he said. "Not the first boy to come to my door talking about my daughter." I will be honest with you. Man, I wanted to run right then. I wanted to bolt back to the car, peel out of that neighborhood, block that address in my app, and pretend I had never heard it. But my feet did not move. My mouth did. "Your daughter," I repeated, and he nodded slowly, eyes never leaving my face, dark, tired eyes that looked like they had cried enough over the years. "Her name is Anna," he said. "She used to take her car down to the lake when she needed to think, park by the water, listen to the radio, that kind of thing. She liked it down there, the quiet, the way the city lights look on the water. One night she did not come back." He paused, swallowed, his hand tightening on the edge of the door, knuckles standing out, old skin stretching. "She went into the water," he said finally. "Car found half in, half out, door open. They said she must have slipped, hit her head maybe. No sign of anyone else involved, just a bad accident." That was in 1953. I laughed. I could not help it. This short, broken sound that did not feel like it belonged to me. "That is not possible," I said. "Your daughter, she was just in my car. She cannot have been. She looked young, younger than me. She said someone was following us. She told me to slow down. She told me about some him in the water. Once I started, I could not stop. The words just tumbled out, my voice getting higher, more frantic. She was soaked. She had no shoes. She sat in my back seat, and now it is all wet, and she just disappeared. She just vanished, and now you are telling me she has been dead since the 50s. That does not make any sense. None of this makes any sense." I felt my hands start to shake, and I shoved them into my pockets so he would not see. He did not look surprised. That was the worst part. He did not look like a man hearing madness. He looked like someone hearing a weather report they already knew. "They come every few years," he said. "Young men like you, sometimes older, always drivers of some kind. They knock on my door after midnight, say they picked up a girl by the lake, say she was wet through and quiet and asked them to bring her home, say she vanished before they got here and left the seat and the floor soaked. They stand where you are standing now, and they tell me, and I make them come in and sit down for a minute before they go back out there, because I do not like to think of someone going back to that car shaking like that." He stepped back then, opening the door wider, an invitation, the hallway yawning behind him, and for a second I saw the outline of a picture frame on the wall, a young woman in black and white, hair done in that old style, smiling at the camera, a lake behind her, the edge of a car beside her, and my throat closed because she looked like the girl who had gotten into my back seat. Not exactly. You could tell the photograph was from another time, but the arch of the nose, the shape of the eyes, it was enough. I think I took half a step toward the threshold before something in me screamed no, not in words, just this bright alarm, this pure instinct that said you have already brought enough from that lake to this house, and you do not need to follow it in there. You do not need to cross another line. Like the distance from the water to my car, from the car to this porch, was bad enough. Crossing into the hallway would be one more thing I could not uncross, so I shook my head. "I should not leave the car," I said, clinging to something practical, something simple, company policy, which was a lie, but it sounded normal. "Safe." He looked at me a long time, then nodded like he understood, like he had heard that before too. "Suit yourself," he said, "but listen to me, son. Whatever you saw, whatever got into your car, do not let it follow you home. Do not go back to that lake looking for answers. She has enough of you drivers as it is." I did not know what that meant, and I did not want to, so I just mumbled something like "thank you" and stepped backward off the porch, almost tripping on the bottom step because my legs felt like someone else's. I heard the door close softly behind me, no slam, just this gentle click, like a lid being put back on a box. Walking back to my car felt like walking toward something with its mouth open. I could see the hazard light still blinking, painting the interior in the rhythm of warning. I opened the driver's door and the smell hit me harder than before. Not just lake water now, but this faint, sour note under it, like something that had been wet too long. Not full rot, just the start. The kind of smell you get from a towel you forgot in the washer for a day, only this felt older, deeper, like it had been trying to become that smell for decades. I leaned in and looked at the back seat again. It was still wet, but the water had stopped dripping. No more little falls onto the mat, just a dark, heavy stain. I reached back with my hand shaking and touched the fabric. I do not know why. Curiosity, or proof, or punishment. And it was cold. Colder than it should have been, given how long it had to warm up. Like it had its own temperature. Ignoring the air around it, my finger came away damp, tiny beads of water clinging to my skin. And for a second I saw, out of the corner of my eye, the pine tree air freshener sway like someone sitting down again, even though I was the only living thing in that car. I wiped my hand on my jeans, leaving a dark streak, and sat down, closed the door. The car felt smaller then, like the roof had dropped an inch. I ended the ride on the app with a thumb that did not feel attached to me. The screen flickered weird once. The fare popped up, more than I expected, like surge pricing had kicked in without warning. And there was a little line of text underneath that made my chest clench. It said, "Thanks for the ride." But where the name ought to be, it was blank. Just white space. No user, no profile, just that sentence hanging there. I blinked, and it was gone. Screen back to the main map, like it had never been there. I drove home with all the mirrors tilted down. Man, I am not joking. I pointed the rear view at the middle of the back seat so I could not see out the back window. I tilted the side mirrors toward the asphalt, so all I could see was the blur of the lane lines and a bit of my own doors, which is the stupidest thing you can do safety-wise, but it felt safer than catching another glimpse of something in the water that was not really there, or seeing someone sitting behind me when I knew the seat was empty. And I did not take the highway. I went the long way through streets with houses, places where if something went wrong, I could at least crash into a front yard instead of going into a ditch. I got back to my trailer around 4, the sky just starting to think about getting lighter on the horizon. That gray time where you cannot tell if it is still night or already morning. I parked, killed the engine, and just sat there, key in my hand, heart still doing that too fast, beat, my shirt sticking to my back, not from heat, but from the way my body had been locked tight for the last half hour. I did not even want to turn around and look at the back seat one more time, because I had this picture in my head, clear as day, of turning and seeing her there again, hair dripping on the seat, eyes fixed on me in the mirror. So I just grabbed my bag and got out as fast as I could, shut the door without glancing through the window, walked up to my front steps, trying not to listen for wet footsteps behind me. I did not sleep that morning. I lay on my mattress with the curtains half open, letting the growing light in like it was the only thing keeping my walls solid, my mind replaying every second of that drive, that look in the side mirror, the patch of wet on the seat, the old man's face at the door, the way he said, "You are not the first," the way he said, "Do not let it follow you home." My own floor felt slanted, like if I rolled the wrong way, I would end up in that car again, in that lane by the lake, looking at that mirror forever. I told myself, okay, maybe you nodded off at the lake, maybe you dreamed it, maybe you had some kind of waking nightmare, stress and caffeine, and no real dinner. Maybe the ride never happened. Easy to prove, right? Check the app history, check the upholstery in daylight. So as soon as the sun was fully up and I had convinced myself to move, I went back outside. The air smelled normal again, dust and cut grass and a hint of hot metal from the cars parked around. I walked to my car slowly, making sure my footsteps sounded solid, like something a human would make. I unlocked it, opened the driver's door, and turned to look at the back seat. The stain was still there, darker than the rest of the fabric, irregular around the edges, exactly where she had sat, dried now, but with that tide mark feeling, like the outline a puddle leaves on concrete when it evaporates. And the floor mat beneath still had that faint smell, not strong enough for anyone else to comment on, probably, but I could smell it, because I knew what it had been. My body recognized it, the way you recognize a perfume someone important used to wear. I touched it again. Stupid, I know. And it was dry now, just cooler than the rest of the material. But my finger tingled where the water had been the night before, like it remembered the cold, like it was still there underneath if you pressed hard enough. I checked my phone, hands shaking again now, went to the trip history. There it was, a ride time-stamped 2:44 a.m. to 2 a.m. pickup near White Rock Lake Park, drop-off in Lakewood, fair amount, exactly what I had seen last night. Only the rider name was just account holder. No picture, no initials, nothing. Which can happen with new accounts. Sure, but the part that made my head spin was that when I tapped it to see the route, the line on the map did not match what I remembered. It showed a straight shot from the lake to the house. No weird stops, no slowdowns, no sudden braking. The speed graph was smooth, like I had never stomped on the brakes in the middle of the road, like I had just glided there in one unbroken line. I checked the timestamp against my own memory of when I had been standing on that porch, and they matched down to the minute. So if this was some dream, it was a dream that had written itself into my account history, into my car seat, into my clothes. I stopped driving nights after that. At first, I told myself it was just temporary, that I needed a break, sleep at decent hours, let whatever weird thing this was fade into a story I could joke about. But every time I tried to turn the app on after dark, my finger froze above the icon. This little voice saying, if you take a pickup near that lake again, if you even drive on that side of town after midnight, he is going to notice you. Like she said, he waits, and maybe this time he will not be content with just sitting in the reflection. Maybe this time the door will not stay closed. Maybe he will find another passenger to use, another name to stick on the screen, and you will not get to run your mirrors down and look away. I have had people request pickups near there during the day since little pins landing on that side of the map, and I decline them every single time. I do not care about the hit to my acceptance rate. I would rather lose the account than go back there, to that stretch of road where the water in the mirror does not match the water outside. I still have the car, cannot afford a new one, so the stain is still there too, faint but visible, if you know where to look. I have tried every cleaner I can find at Walmart, scrubbed until my hands hurt, and it lightens but it does not go, like it has soaked into something deeper than the fabric, like the seat remembers having another weight in it that is not mine. At night, when I am driving home from the tire shop or the grocery store, and it is later than I meant for it to be, I do this stupid thing where I catch myself checking the rear view and then immediately snapping my eyes away, scolding myself for even thinking about it, like the attention alone might call something back. But every now and then, when the road is empty and the world feels hollow, I catch a glimpse at just the wrong angle, and for a heartbeat I see something that is not the back window, not the trailer park behind me, but a flat black surface with tight circles spreading on it, like a drop just fell, like something is rising. I know what you are going to say. You are going to say that urban legends are like that. They latch on to things people already know. That there are stories all over about girls by lakes, thumbing rides, that I probably heard about something like that as a kid, and my brain pulled it up when I was tired and wired and sitting in a parking lot by the water at 2 a.m, that the old man was just some lonely guy playing into it because it gave him something to do, that the date he said was just a detail meant to freeze me, to make it sound uncanny. And I have tried to believe that. I swear, I have read about sleep deprivation and micro dreams and all that, but none of those explanations account for the way the app logged that ride, for the way my car feels colder on that side even now, months later, for the way every few days I find tiny dried specks on that floor mat, like something dripped there and dried again, even though I have banned everyone from bringing drinks into the car now. Once, about 3 weeks after it happened, I was walking past the front of my trailer after a rain, and I saw a single wet footprint on the step. Bare, small, like a woman's or a teenager's, no others leading up to it, no smears going away, just that one. As if someone had put one foot down and then decided not to come in. The print was facing the door. I stood there staring until the sun dried it out, watching it fade, the outline going from clear to smeared to nothing. And my heart was pounding like I had run a mile, even though I was just standing still. I sleep with a fan on now, not because of the heat, but because I cannot stand the idea that if the room was too quiet, I might hear water dripping somewhere it should not be, from a corner of the ceiling where there is no leak, from under the bed, from the back seat through the thin walls of my home. I still wake up some nights at 2:44 exactly, my phone screen cold against my palm, as if I had fallen asleep with it there. And for a few seconds, I cannot tell if I am in my bed or in that car, engine idling by the lake, waiting for a rider who is already there but I have not seen yet, standing barefoot on the gravel by the passenger door. That is why I am telling you this, man, not because I expect you to fix it or explain it, but because I need it to live somewhere outside my head, in words, in your ears, so that if it keeps happening, if more drivers keep knocking on that old man's door in Lakewood, someone knows it is not just some silly story that kids tell about White Rock Lake. It is something that uses stories and apps and cars the way we use roads. Something that waits in reflections for people like me who think they are just out there trying to make rent. I do not work night shifts anymore. I do not drive by that lake. I do not pick up riders from the water side of town. And if you ever find yourself parked there at 3 in the morning and your phone pings with a new account asking for a ride, and the name looks plain and harmless and the bonus looks good, I want you to remember what I told you. And I want you to check your mirrors before you hit accept. I stopped to watch the lights outside, Marfa. My name's Colby Hightower. I'm from Sanderson out in Terrell County, and I work as a diesel mechanic. And before I start this, I want to say, I know how it sounds, and I know what people say about that stretch by Marfa and the lights and all that, but I am not telling you some campfire thing. Man, I am sitting behind my trailer right now on this busted plastic lawn chair. The roof tarp is flapping over my head. It is 3 in the morning. My hands are still shaking, and I have not slept right since that night. And if I do not say this to somebody, I feel like my head is going to crack open. It was a Tuesday. That is one of the few things I am sure about. A regular work day, nothing special. I had Whataburger for breakfast on the way to the shop, #1 combo, jalapenos on it, because I always tell myself I am gonna start eating better. And then I order the same thing, large Dr. Pepper, and the receipt is still in the console of my truck with the date on it. That is how I know it was a Tuesday. That and the time clock at the shop, because I punched in at 7:01 that morning. I remember seeing the red numbers and thinking, great, already a minute late, and I was wearing that gray Carhartt shirt with my name patch crooked and a little oil stain on the hem from when I leaned over a transmission last week, and the same jeans I always wear, the ones with the tear on the back pocket that my mom keeps telling me to throw out. It was hot already, even in the morning, that dry West Texas heat that feels like you are walking into a hairdryer. And I remember thinking we were going to get another dust storm because the sky had that pale color to it, like it is tired of being blue. Work was just work, man, nothing special. Couple of ranch trucks needing tires, one of those big dualies with a busted brake line, a Peterbilt that had been running hot, the usual. You get to where your hands move on their own and your head is somewhere else, counting hours and bills, wondering if the swamp cooler at home is going to hold out another summer, stuff like that. We had the radio on in the bay, same country station that always fades in and out because the antenna is bent. And it was just another long day, standing on concrete, hands black with grease, shirt sticking to my back. I remember exactly what I had for lunch too, because that is the last totally normal thing I can hold on to before everything got strange. We ordered from that little Mexican place by the tracks in town. I got carne guisada with extra tortillas, and I remember the plastic fork snapped when I tried to cut a piece, and I had to go ask for another one from the counter. And the girl there laughed and said they were getting the cheap ones now, and I joked about how everything was cheap except the prices. That is how ordinary it all was. I clocked out at 6:12 because my boss made a joke about me finally leaving on time, and I thought I was just gonna drive home, heat up some leftovers, maybe watch a game, fall asleep on the couch like always. I did not plan anything. That is important to me, that you understand that. This was not a ghost hunt or some road trip to see something weird. I was just tired. The reason I ended up anywhere near Marfa that night is because my cousin Daniel called while I was locking up the bay doors. He lives in Alpine, works at the Walmart there, and he said his car would not start and he had the overnight shift, and could I come out and bring him my jump box and take a look because he could not afford a tow. It is about a 2-hour drive from Sanderson to Alpine if you do not push it too hard. And I remember looking at the fuel gauge in my F250 and thinking, all right, I can make it if I stop somewhere cheap on the way back. I almost said no. That is the thing that keeps me up. I almost said, man, I am beat, call somebody else. But I heard how stressed he sounded, and I said, all right, give me a minute. Let me swing by the trailer and grab the box. So I went home. The trailer looked the same as always, that blue tarp on the roof, held down with cinder blocks and ratchet straps, little plastic flamingos, my mom stuck out front like that would make it less sad, the neighbor's dog barking at nothing. I grabbed the jump box from the corner by the water heater. It still had a little dust on it from the last time I used it at the yard, and I threw it in the back seat with my tool bag. I changed my shirt because the Carhartt was soaked, put on a clean one, the navy blue one with Height Tower stitched on it, and I grabbed a bottle of water and a bag of gas station peanuts that were already half gone. I remember looking at the sky before I got in the truck. The sun was going down, and it was one of those West Texas sunsets that make you think things are all right for a second. Orange and pink and purple, the kind that tourists like to take pictures of when they pull over on 90, and the wind had died down, so it was real quiet. You could just hear a train way off and some dogs barking. I did not feel anything strange then. No sense of being watched, no cold shivers, nothing like that, just tired. I got on 285 and then cut over, how the roads zigzag out there, past Dryden, then Marathon, cutting through all that empty land where the brush just goes on, and the fences look like they are holding the sky up more than the cattle. By the time I was closer to Alpine, it was full dark. My dash clock said 10:43 when I passed through Marathon, because I remember thinking Daniel was going to be mad. I was running late, but he did not have anyone else. The stars were stupid bright that night, the kind you only see when you get way out there. Whole sky full of them, and every now and then a truck would pass going the other way, and the light would wash the cab and then be gone, and it would just be me and the hum of the tires again. I made it to Alpine a little after midnight. We got his car started. That part is nothing. Bad connection on the battery terminal, little corrosion. I cleaned it with an old toothbrush and soda from a vending machine and tightened it down, jumped it, and it caught. We stood there in the Walmart parking lot under those buzzing lights, and he kept thanking me, and I kept saying it was nothing, just telling him to get the battery checked, and he offered to buy me a burger from the McDonald's inside, but I said no. I just wanted to head back because I still had to drive all the way to Sanderson and be at the shop again in the morning. It was around 1 inch the morning when I left Alpine. I remember because I checked my phone and I had a notification from the bank, and I thought, great, another overdraft fee coming. And I told myself I would look at it tomorrow. I put on some old rock station that comes in better at night for some reason, cracked the window because the AC in my truck only works when it feels like it, and I started heading back toward Marfa on 90 Cess, just another long, empty road at night. I had heard about the lights, of course. Everybody out there has. People talk about the viewing area like it is some kind of roadside attraction. I had just never stopped. I always figured it was headlights, some trick of the air, or tourists making stuff up. I was 31 years old, and I had lived out in that part of Texas my whole life and never bothered. That night, though, when I got close, I could see more cars than usual pulled off up ahead, and the glowing sign for the Marfa Lights viewing area floating out there in the dark, and I do not know why. Man, but I thought, well, I am already out here, might as well see what the fuss is about for 5 minutes. That is all I was thinking. Just 5 minutes. I pulled in off the highway, that crunch of gravel under the tires, and I parked a little away from the other cars, closer to the far end of the lot by the fence, because I did not want to deal with drunk tourists or people blasting music. There were maybe 6, 7 cars there, mostly rentals by the look of the plates, and a couple standing by the low stone wall staring out into the dark like they were waiting on a show. My dash clock said 1:27 when I turned the key and the engine went quiet. That sticks in my head. I remember the number clear as day. I killed the headlights, and for a second I could not see anything, just black. Then my eyes adjusted, and I could see the outline of the viewing platform and the fence line and the faint glow of phone screens. It was a warm night, but not hot. Little breeze coming off the desert that smelled like dust and creosote, and the sky out past the platform was just this huge, empty dark with that low line of distant hills. I grabbed my water bottle, stepped out, shut the door as soft as I could so I would not spook anybody, and I walked over to the wall. I stood there for a second, feeling kind of stupid, like I was waiting for fireworks. At first, I did not see anything, just darkness and stars and the occasional faint lights way out from some ranch house, or a truck moving along a road I could not see. Then, after a minute or so, I noticed these little dots way out, low to the horizon, where there should not have been anything. At first I thought it was my eyes, like when you stare at something too long and you get those floating spots. But they stayed. Little white specks, then one red, then a yellow one, out over the nothing, just hanging there. They were not blinking like plane lights, and they did not stay in a straight line like headlights. They floated. That is the only way I can say it. They just floated. You could hear people murmuring, pointing, phones coming up to record. The couple next to me, the guy said, "There they are, babe. Told you." And she kind of grabbed his arm. Somebody behind me laughed, like nervous, and said, "That is so weird." I was standing with my hands on the rough stone, feeling the grit under my palms, and I watched these lights move. Not fast, not like anything flying, just kind of gliding, separating, and coming back together. White and red and yellow, like somebody was dragging them on, invisible strings out over the brush. I told myself it had to be something normal. Headlights off on a highway I could not see, reflection off glass from the cars in the lot, anything. I was tired, that is all. That is what I kept thinking. Then one of the lights broke away. It was a white one at first, a little brighter than the others, and it kind of slid sideways, like it was peeling off from the group. It stopped for a second, then it started moving again, but this time it was coming straight toward us. I do not know how to explain the distance out there. Man, it is flat and empty, and you think something is far, and then it is not. But I swear to you that light was coming toward the viewing area. Not just drifting, not random, right toward us. At first people got excited. A guy near me lifted his phone higher. You could hear the little click of video starting. Somebody said, "Oh, look at that one. It is coming closer." The light kept changing as it moved. White to a kind of golden yellow, then a soft red, then back again, like it was cycling. And it felt wrong, because it was not a pattern I recognized, not like plane lights or a tower beacon. It was more like breathing. That is the only word I can use. It brightened a little, then dimmed, brightened, dimmed, like a chest rising and falling. My heart started beating faster, and I told myself it was just because this was finally something to look at, and I was letting my imagination go. But there was this little voice way in the back of my head that said, "No, this is not right." The closer it came, the quieter everybody got. I did not even notice the silence at first, just that my ears felt weird. The highway noise faded. The little bits of conversation just stopped. Even the insects, what few you could hear, seemed to vanish. It was like somebody had turned the volume down on the whole world except for my own breathing. My hands were sweating on the stone. That light kept coming. It did not get bigger like a headlight would, not in a normal way. It stayed about the same size, but somehow it felt closer, like it was pulling itself closer without needing to grow. The colors started to shift faster, white, yellow, red, white, in pulses. My brain kept wanting to line it up with something I knew, like a signal, like code. Then it reached the fence. That is where everything went wrong. There is that simple wire fence out past the stone wall, just to keep people from wandering off into the desert, and there is a gap between the two where it is just a little slope of rock and dirt. That light came to a stop right on the other side of the fence, maybe 10, 15 feet from where I was standing. It just hung there, the size of a soccer ball, I guess. No clear edges, just this ball of brightness. And it was pulsing slow and steady. With every pulse, I could feel something in my chest answer it, like it was syncing up with my heartbeat. White, then golden, then red, back to white. I could see the fence post lit up, the wire glowing faint in the edges. It was not throwing light like a flashlight or a car. It did not cast big shadows. It was like the air around it was glowing just enough to show shape, nothing more. Somebody to my left whispered, "Do you see that?" And another voice said, "Whoa, that is so close." And then the guy with the phone right next to me said, "What the?" and stopped himself, and I heard his finger tap on the screen like he was trying to zoom in. I reached for my own phone without thinking. It was in my right pocket. I pulled it out, thumbed it awake. The lock screen came up with the picture of my little nephew holding a cat. The time said 1:31, and I swiped open the camera. The second I hit record, my phone died. Screen just went black. Not a fade, not a low battery warning, just gone. I hit the power button, nothing. Held it down, nothing. That made my stomach drop because my phone battery had been at like 70% when I left Alpine. I remember checking it because I was using it for music. I thought maybe it was a glitch, but I heard the guy next to me curse under his breath and say, "My phone just shut off." And the girl with him said, Hers did too. Behind us, somebody else said, "My camera stopped," and another voice said, "My battery was full." You could feel the panic start to creep in around the edges. That light did not move. It just hung there, pulsing like it was watching us. I know how that sounds, but that is exactly how it felt. I got this feeling, like when you realize somebody is staring at you across a room and you do not know how long they have been looking. That crawling feeling on the back of your neck. Except this was not a person. I could not see anything inside it. No shape, no figure, just pure brightness. But I still felt it looking. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of equipment. A drone, some ranger with a toy, messing with tourists. I looked along the fence line for a person, a truck, anything. There was nothing, just starlight and brush and that one light. The rest of the lights, way out in the distance, had faded or moved off. It was only this one now. My truck, back in the lot, was dark. I realized then that the interior light that usually stays on a bit after you close the door had not come on. All the cars in the lot looked dead. No dash lights, no little red security blinkers, just shadows. The couple next to me started backing away toward their car, still staring at the light. Nobody was talking now. You could hear breathing, shoes scuffing on the concrete, somebody's keys jingling in a shaking hand. My head felt stuffed with cotton. Then the light changed. The pulses got faster. Bright, dim, bright, dim. Like it was adjusting something. The color settled on a kind of white with just a hint of blue, like those LED headlights you see on some new trucks, but softer, not harsh. And I swear, man, I swear to you, I heard something. Not with my ears exactly. It was like the way you feel bass in your chest when somebody has music up too loud, except there was no sound. It was like a pressure that came with each pulse. I do not know how to say it right. Every time it brightened, that pressure hit, like a question shoved into my head. And when it dimmed, it eased up, like it was waiting. My heart was pounding along with it until I could not tell which was which. My legs felt rubbery. Part of me wanted to step back, to get to my truck, to get out of there. But another part felt pinned to that spot. It was like trying to walk in a bad dream. I could not look away. Out of nowhere, I remembered being a kid, driving with my dad on those same roads, how he would tap the steering wheel and say, "Never look too long at something off the road at night. Boy, what is out there likes to know you, see it." And it hit me so hard I almost said his name out loud. The light pulsed again, and this time, on the bright part, I got this rush of images in my head. Not clear, not like pictures on a screen, more like impressions. Fence posts, gravel, the curve of my own truck, the back of my head. All from outside me, like I was seeing myself from the lot and from above and from way out in the desert all at once. My stomach rolled. I grabbed the edge of the wall to keep from falling. It lasted maybe a second, and then it was gone, and I was just staring at this thing shaking. I must have made a noise, because the guy who had been next to me was suddenly gone, and I could hear car doors opening behind me, engines trying to turn over and failing, starters clicking and nothing catching. That is when the real fear hit. Because it is one thing to watch some weird light out over the desert with a bunch of strangers and you tell yourself you can leave anytime. It is just lights. It is another thing to realize your truck is just a big dark lump of metal that will not start and something is sitting 10 feet away from you without a sound. I backed up then. I forced my legs to move. One step, then another, my boots scraping that rough concrete. I did not turn my back on it. I could not. I moved sideways, eyes locked on it, and it stayed exactly where it was, hovering at fence height, pulsing steady. I made it to my truck, fumbling the handle. The interior light did not come on. That kicked some animal part of my brain awake. I slid in, hand shaking so bad I dropped the keys, had to pat around on the floor mat to find them. The whole time I could feel that light out there, like a furnace you are too close to. I shoved the key in, turned it, nothing, not even a click, dead. All the gauges sat at 0. No dome light, no radio. I tried again, harder, like that would help. Nothing. I know enough about trucks to say this was not a normal battery death. Not with no warning, not with everything just blank like that. My jump box was in the back seat, and it might as well have been a brick. Behind me, I could hear other people doing the same thing. Doors slamming, keys turning, some of them talking fast, trying to stay calm, saying things like, "It is just the power. It is just a glitch. Nobody was starting. The air felt thick, like before a storm, except the sky was clear. I thought about getting out and going over to someone else, but I could not make myself step back out of the cab. I just sat there, breathing fast, watching that thing over the top of the steering wheel. It had turned slightly toward the lot. I know it did not have a face or eyes or anything like that, but I could feel the shift, like its attention moved. It pulsed once, bright enough that it hurt my eyes, and then, in the middle of the next dim, it was just gone. No fade, no shrinking. 1 second it was there, the next there was nothing but the dark and the fence and the brush. A woman screamed, sharp and short, then cut it off, like she was embarrassed. Someone shouted, "What was that? What is going on?" Another voice said, "Try it now, try it now." And in that same instant, every dash in the lot lit back up like somebody had flipped a switch. My radio crackled. The little airbag lights flicked on to their test pattern. A chime sounded because my door was still open. I turned the key on instinct and the engine caught right away, like nothing had ever been wrong. The dome light came on late, like it had missed its cue. I did not wait. I did not look around to see who was leaving or if anyone wanted help. I threw it into reverse, gravel popping under the tires, and backed out so fast I almost hit the car next to me. I remember catching a glimpse of the couple in my headlights for half a second, pale and wide-eyed, before I swung around and pointed the truck at the highway. As soon as I hit 90 and got some speed, the shaking in my hands switched to a different kind, more like an adrenaline crash, and I started talking out loud to myself, saying stuff like, "It was just lights, man. It was just some stupid phenomenon. You are tired. You worked a long day. Do not make this a thing." And my voice sounded wrong in my own ears, too high, like it belonged to someone else. The clock on the dash said 2:04. I know that road by heart, and I know how long it should take to get from that viewing area back to the turnoff that heads toward Marathon and then down to Sanderson. With the way I was driving, I should have been hitting certain mile markers at certain times. It is burned into you when you drive the same stretch over and over, but things did not line up. At first, it was just little stuff. I would pass a reflector post and glance at the time and think, that was quick. And then a few minutes later, I would pass a sign I knew was farther than it should have been, but the clock had barely moved. I told myself I was just wound up. Then I realized my music was not playing. The radio was on, the display said some station, but there was no sound, just a low hiss. And if I turned it up, the hiss got louder, but nothing else. I switched to my phone, figured I would play something off Spotify, but when I plugged it in, it would not even acknowledge the cable. I hit the power button, and the screen came back to life. Battery at 68%, like nothing had happened, lock screen, picture, everything. The last notification was still that bank push from earlier. No record of a shutdown. I opened the camera app. The last video saved was from a week ago at my nephew's birthday. Nothing from the viewing area. No failed files, no corrupted thumbnails, nothing. I checked the time at the top. 2:04. My dash said 2:12. 8 minutes had passed in the truck, but my phone had not moved. I know sometimes phones get weird about time when they are switching towers or whatever, but out there you do not have enough service for it to jump around like that. It stuck in my head, a little splinter. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat. I did not want to look at it anymore. The road felt longer than usual, like it was stretching. The darkness out the windows seemed thicker than it should be, like the headlights were just painting light on a wall a few feet ahead instead of pushing it back. I kept checking my rearview mirror because I could not shake the feeling that something was back there. Not a car, not headlights, just something. The mirror showed nothing but my own pale face and the empty lane behind. Then, some miles out, near a patch of road where there is nothing on either side but scrub and a couple of half-fallen fence lines, I saw a glow on the shoulder in the mirror. Not bright, just a little smudge of light near the right side, way back. I thought it was another car cresting a rise. I watched. No beams, no movement, just that little glow, steady and low, keeping pace far behind. My throat went dry. I told myself I was seeing things. I refused to check again for a while, just stared straight ahead, knuckles tight on the wheel, the speedometer creeping a little higher than it should have. Finally, I could not stand it and I glanced up. The glow was closer, not by a lot, but enough that I knew it was not standing still. still low to the ground, off on the shoulder, like something moving alongside the road instead of on it. My heart started that double beat again, like it had at the fence. I hit the gas. The truck groaned a little, engine pushing, the needle climbed. The glow did not fall back. It did not get closer. It just hung there at the same little distance, like it was tethered. I wanted to stop the truck right then and just get out and walk into the brush, rather than have that thing following me. But that made even less sense. I kept going. I started talking again, forgetting words mid-sentence, saying things like, "Listen, this is nothing. This is just your eyes. You are tired. You are making a big deal out of some headlights." Except I knew it was not headlights. There was no beam, no flicker, no sign of another vehicle, and the glow stayed the same color, that soft white with a hint of blue. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. One glance in the mirror, nothing. No glow, no halo, just my own face and the road unrolling behind. I waited to feel relieved. I did not. I just felt hollowed out. I made it home somehow. I do not remember the last half hour of the drive clearly. It is like my brain skipped over it. 1 second I was on 90. The next I was turning onto the little dirt lane that leads to our trailer park, the washboard bumps rattling the change in the cup holder. The clock on the dash said 3:11 when I parked. That is what it said. My phone, when I picked it up again, said 2:47. There are 30 some odd minutes between those numbers that I cannot account for. I sat there in the dark cab listening to the ticking of the cooling engine and the far-off yip of a coyote somewhere and the wind catching the edge of the tarp on the roof of my trailer, and I felt like I had just walked out of a too bright room into a dim one. Everything looked flat. I went inside, kicked off my boots, drank half a bottle of water without tasting it, and just stood there in the kitchen staring at the microwave clock until the numbers blurred. I did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pulsing light, and I would jerk awake even though I had not actually fallen asleep. The next morning I went to work like normal. That sounds crazy, but what else was I going to do? I needed the hours. I did not tell my boss. I did not tell my coworkers. I changed the oil on a fleet truck, rotated tires, listened to them talk about sports and bills and some wreck on the interstate like nothing was wrong. The world kept moving. At lunch I went out to my truck and sat there and checked my phone again, scrolling back through the timestamps, looking for anything I had missed. Nothing. No photo, no glitch, no record. When I got home that night, my mom was sitting on the little fold-out couch with a stack of church mailers, and she asked me why I looked so tired, and I almost told her everything, but then I did not, because saying it out loud made it real. I mumbled something about a long drive and went out back to smoke, even though I had been trying to quit. I stood there by the fence, the dry grass scratching my boots, looking out over the dark patch of mesquite and junked cars, and I saw it, not out in the distance this time, right there at the back corner of the lot where the property line dips down into that little dry wash. A glow, small, steady, white with that blue tint, like a star had dropped too low. It was half hidden behind an old rusted out refrigerator somebody had dumped there years ago. My heart stopped for a second. I blinked hard. It was still there. I did not move. The trailer park was quiet. Just the buzz of one security light by the road and the hum of a window unit somewhere. No cars, no people, just me and that little piece of light at the edge of the world. It did not pulse this time. It just sat there, like it was waiting. I do not know how long I stared. My cigarette burned down to the filter between my fingers, the heat finally snapping me back. When I looked again, it was gone. Just the dark in the refrigerator and some trash caught on the wire fence. I went inside and locked the door for the first time in months. Since that night, things have not gone back to normal. I do not mean that in some dramatic way where plates fly off shelves or voices whisper my name. It is smaller than that and worse for it. Lights go out around me more than they should. Fluorescents at the shop flicker when I walk under them, then go back to normal when I call someone over. The little LED on my phone charger will cut out for a second when I pick it up, like something is interrupting the power. Streetlights will blink off as I drive past, one after another sometimes, like something pacing me just out of sight. I do not work night shifts anymore. I told my boss I could not. Blamed it on headaches, on my eyes, anything I could think of that did not sound insane. I avoid that stretch by Marfa completely. If I have to go toward Alpine now, I take the long way, add 40 minutes to the drive, cut through Marathon rather than get anywhere near that viewing area. My cousin Daniel keeps asking why, and I keep telling him I just like the other route better. Sometimes, late, when the swamp cooler is rattling and the tarp on the roof makes that soft flapping noise, I will be half asleep, and I will feel that old pressure in my chest, not strong, just a little squeeze, and I will see that white glow behind my eyes. I will wake up and the room will feel wrong, like the darkness in the corners is thicker than it should be. My phone screen will be lit. No reason, just on showing the lock screen with the time. Twice now it has said 1:31 when that happens, even when I know it cannot be. One of those times I got up and went to the microwave to check and it said 4:06, but my phone in my hand still said 1:31 until I unlocked it and the numbers jumped. I asked around, quiet like, at the shop and at the diner, without sounding like a lunatic. You hear stories if you listen long enough. A trucker who says he saw lights pacing him in his mirrors all the way to Van Horn. A ranch hand who will not cross a certain pasture at night because he swears there is a glow that moves in the brush without making a sound. One old guy at the coffee counter told me, in that way old men talk when they are not sure if they want you to believe them. That the lights out there do not just show themselves to anyone, they pick who they want, and if you see one come close, you had better pray it is the only time because they do not follow you twice. I asked him what he meant by that. He stirred his coffee, stared past me at nothing, and said, the ones it comes near more than once, they do not talk about it. They are not around long enough. I laughed it off in the moment, made some joke about tourists, but my hands were sweating on the counter. I do not know what that thing was. I do not know if it was the same kind of light people have been seeing out there for years or something else that just looks like it. I am not here to tell you it was aliens or spirits or any of that. I just know I stood 10 or 15 feet from something that did not act like anything I have ever seen, that killed the power to everything around it without a sound, that felt like it was touching the inside of my head when it pulsed, and that since that nighttime does not always move the way it should around me, and light does not always behave the way it is supposed to. I can hear you thinking, why do you not just leave, move to Houston or Dallas or somewhere with more people and more normal lights? Maybe I should, but that is not how it works when you live out here. My job is here. My mom is here. My whole life is tied up in these long flat roads and this dry air, and deep down, if I am honest, I am scared it would not matter. That wherever I go, some part of that thing will know. That once it has looked at you from the other side of a fence, you are on some kind of list. I flinch now when I see any strange light at night. A reflection in a window, the way a phone screen bounces off a windshield, even the low red glow of a radio tower can make my heart jump if I catch it out of the corner of my eye. I keep my curtains closed. I park the truck as close to the trailer as I can so I do not have to cross big open spaces after dark. I stop night fishing out at the stock tanks with my buddies because the idea of sitting by still water with the sky open above me makes my skin crawl. I have not told them why. They just think I got boring. Maybe I did, but I am still here. That is the only proof I have that whatever people say about the lights only following you once might have some truth. It got close to me, closer than it should have, and now it stays at the edges, in the corners of my vision, in the glitch of a clock or the blink of a bulb. It has not come right up to the fence again, not yet. I am sitting behind my trailer right now, like I said, in this weak circle of light from the porch bulb, talking into a cracked phone screen. And every few seconds, I look past the fence, out over that patch of dark brush and junk, to that back corner by the old refrigerator. I do not see anything, not right now. But I feel like if I sit here long enough, if I keep talking and let my guard down, there will be a moment where I look up and it will already be there, quiet and steady and pulsing, and whatever it is doing when it stares at you from that close, it will start again, picking up where it left off at that viewing area by Marfa, like no time has passed at all. So if you ever find yourself out on 90 inches the middle of the night and you see that sign for the Marfa Lights viewing area and you think you will just pull in for a few minutes because you have heard the stories and you want to see something cool, ask yourself if you are ready for something to look back. Really think about that. Because once you stand there with your hands on that stone, and your phone dying in your pocket, and your heart trying to match a pulse that does not belong to you, I do not think you can go back to believing it is just lights in the distance. And if one of them ever decides to come all the way up to the fence for you, you better hope, like that old man said, that it only needs the one look. I went alone into an abandoned hospital at 2 a.m. My name's Kyle Berryman. I'm from Carnes City, down past San Antonio, and I work as a refrigeration tech. The kind of guy they call when your walk-in cooler dies and your whole inventory is about to go bad. And I need you to understand this was supposed to be just another stupid side thing I did for the channel. Just some shaky night footage for the handful of people who like when I walk around old buildings with a flashlight and act braver than I am. It was not supposed to follow me home. All right? So that day started like nothing at all. I got up at 6 because my back hurt from the stupid mattress, made coffee that tasted like burnt dirt because the machine at the trailer is full of lime, ate 2 pieces of toast with that cheap strawberry jam from H-E-B. I remember that exact jar because there is still a red smear on the sleeve of the shirt I wore. I had on my gray work shirt with my name patch crooked on the chest, a couple of old Freon stains on the front, and I threw a honey bun in the truck for later. I remember looking at the clock on the stove before I left. It said 7:18. I remember that real clear for some reason. I did 2 service calls that day. First was a busted ice machine at a little bar off 181. Second was a cooler at a Mexican restaurant where the owner kept standing over me asking if he could watch how I did it because his cousin wanted to learn just normal junk, hot as anything outside. That late summer heat that sticks to you. I sweated through my shirt before noon and had to change into the backup one I keep behind the seat, which is the one I was wearing later that night. The navy blue one with the little rip at the shoulder seam. I am telling you this because that rip is how I know I did not dream any of this. Okay? So I got off a little early because my boss had to drive up to San Marcos. I clocked out in the app at 3:42 inches the afternoon. I remember staring at that number, 3:42, and thinking good, if I get home, shower, recharge the camera batteries, I can make it out to the old hospital by maybe a little after midnight. I had been bugging this guy named Donnie about it for weeks. He is friends with one of the folks that owns the property out by Yorktown, not right in town, like a little past it on one of those roads where the trees lean over. Everybody around here knows there is an old memorial hospital sitting out there empty. People tell stories, but most of them never actually went in. I had driven past it twice in the daytime. Big brick thing with the boarded up windows and that busted cross still sticking up from the chapel end, vines climbing up the front porch rails, no trespassing signs slapped all over the fence, that kind of place. So anyway, Donnie finally calls me around noon that same day and says, "Hey man, my cousin talked to the guy. If you sign this little waiver, they do not care if you walk through for an hour or two. Just do it late so nobody sees a bunch of lights moving around. They do not want kids coming out trying to copy you." And I remember I got that little jump in my chest because I had been wanting something bigger for the channel, you know, like not just empty houses and sheds. So I told him, yeah, I am in, for sure. And he texted me a picture of this 1-page permission slip, all typed out with like 2 lines at the bottom. One for a name, one for a date. And I am paranoid about my real name being out there too much. So for stuff like that, I use my middle name and my mom's maiden name. So what I wrote on that form was Jason Cole. That is not my name. My name is Kyle Scott Berryman. I am saying it out loud so you understand the difference. I wrote Jason Cole in my own ugly handwriting, signed it, took a photo, sent it back to Donnie. He said, "Cool, you are good. Keep your car off the road and do not post the video with the full outside shot. Just interior stuff." That was it. That was the whole arrangement. So I went home, I showered, I watched half an episode of some hunting show with the volume down while my camera batteries charged, ate 2 slices of cold pizza from the night before, sat there with my boots off trying to talk myself out of being nervous, because every time I do one of these, I start getting that tight feeling between my shoulders, like I forgot something important. I laid out everything on the coffee table like I always do: flashlight, backup flashlight, headlamp, extra batteries, little EMF meter I bought on eBay that probably does nothing, digital voice recorder, my main camera with the strap, tripod in case I wanted to set up a static shot, and a new pair of work gloves because last time I cut my hand on some rusted metal and my boss was not happy about me missing a day to get a tetanus shot. I remember looking at the time on my phone. It was 11:07 when I finally got up and started loading the truck. The air outside was heavy but not stormy. Just this thick, still heat, hardly any wind. The trailer park was quiet except for somebody's TV through thin walls and a dog that kept letting out these bored little barks. I threw everything in the passenger seat, started the engine, and sat there with my hand on the gear shift for a minute, just listening to the motor before I put it in drive. You ever sit there and feel almost like something is asking you, are you sure, right in the middle of your chest? That is how it felt, but I shook it off and told myself I was being dramatic for the views. Like, dude, you are going to walk around some old hallways and film some peeling paint. Relax. So I pulled out, hit 181, and drove. It takes almost an hour the way I go. Dark stretches where your headlights only hit mesquite and fence posts. No houses, nothing. The sky was that moonless kind where you lose the horizon and it is just your own lights and your dash. I had the radio on low, some call-in station where people were talking about high school football scores, and I was sipping on a gas station coffee that had gone kind of sour, but I drank it anyway because I wanted to be wired. I kept checking the clock on the dash, watching it creep toward 2. That was the time I picked in my head. 2 inches the morning, hour or so inside, back on the road by 3, home by 4, sleep by 5. It all felt like a schedule, like work, and that is maybe the weirdest part looking back. That I treated it like any other job. I turned off the highway onto the smaller road that winds toward Yorktown, past one stretch where I know there is a little cemetery behind a line of trees. Could not see it, just knew it was there. And then I took the turn Donnie had told me about, this narrow, cracked road with a cattle guard at the start and no street lights at all. My headlights swept over the old chain link fence when I finally rolled up. The hospital sat back from the road a bit, big dark shape with that broken cross, leaning a little. There was a metal gate chained, but the chain was looped loose, like somebody had already been in it that week. I turned off my lights for a second just to see how dark it actually was, and instantly the whole world felt erased. I turned them back on right away because my chest jumped, parked the truck in the little dirt gap beside the fence like Donnie said, so it would not look obvious from the road. Engine ticking as it cooled, crickets loud and steady. I could smell that dry dirt, and something faintly sweet, like there were flowers somewhere I could not see. I sat there and checked my stuff again, put fresh batteries in the flashlight, turned the voice recorder on to test it, said the date and time like I always do, August 22nd, 2:06 a.m. Kyle. And then I stopped and cleared my throat and did it again the way I do for the videos. August 22nd, 2:06 a.m. Jason Cole, inside the old Memorial Hospital near Yorktown, Texas. Solo investigation, saved that file, reset it, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The gravel under my boots sounded way too loud, like the night was empty and hanging on every noise. I unhooked the chain and slid through the gap, swung my backpack onto one shoulder, camera in my right hand, flashlight in my left. The beam caught the front steps, chipped concrete, weeds growing up through cracks. The front doors were glass once, but somebody had boarded them over and spray painted a half-finished word I could not make out. I kept talking because talking feels like protection sometimes. Like if you narrate it out loud, it cannot get to you. I said stuff like, all right, heading up the main steps. Nobody here but me, just an empty building. I was trying to sound casual for the video, but I could hear my own breath coming short under the words. The air got cooler the closer I got to the doors. Not a breeze. Just this settled cold that felt wrong for how hot the night had been. Like walking into a walk-in freezer that already cycled down. That is a feeling I know I work in them. My hand shook a little when I reached for the handle on the side door that was not boarded. Old metal bar with peeling paint. It pushed in easier than I expected. Hinges gave a soft groan. Nothing dramatic, just that tired old building sound. And this smell washed out. Not rot, not exactly mold, more like old bandages and dust, and the inside of a medicine cabinet that has not been opened in years. There is a particular hospital smell that never really goes away. I stepped in, and the flashlight beam lit up a narrow hallway with pale green walls that were flaking in long strips, Tile floor cracked and stained. Somebody had left an old rolling cart overturned against the wall, the wheels frozen with rust. I turned the camera on. The little red light blinked, and I started my usual intro, but softer because the sound seemed to bounce back at me, every syllable coming back with a half-second lag. That was the first wrong thing. Not big wrong, just off, like there was more room in there than there should be based on what my eyes saw. I told myself it was just the way sound bounces in tile and plaster. I walked down that first hallway, doors on both sides, some partly open, some closed, and every time I passed an open one, I swung the flashlight in, little exam rooms with empty cabinets, a couple old stretchers, one room where there were still faded kids' stickers on the wall, stars and little bears, that hit me in a way I did not like. I kept talking to the camera, saying stuff like, okay, this is the East Wing, looks like patient rooms, no graffiti inside, which is strange. Whoever owns it has been keeping people out for real. And I got almost to the end of that hallway when the second wrong thing happened. I heard a step behind me that was not mine. I know how my own boots sound, heavy heeled and toe. I heard that plus one more, just a fraction of a second behind, like someone taller walking with me. My whole back tightened up so fast it hurt. I stopped dead. The flashlight beam shook and jittered on the wall. I listened. Heard nothing now, just my own breathing and the faint ticking of the camera strap when it settled. I told myself it was just the echo again, but it had not sounded like echo. It sounded like another pair of boots. I swallowed, said into the recorder and the camera at the same time, okay. I thought I heard something behind me there. Probably just my own footsteps, bouncing back. If there's anybody in here, I am not here to mess with you or wreck anything. Just taking a look, and then I will be gone. My voice sounded too loud again. Too bright. I turned around slowly. The hallway behind me was empty, all the way to the door. My own footprints were the only thing in the dust on the tiles. That detail sticks in my mind because I actually bent down and looked. There were these faint, darker marks where I had stepped, and nothing else. And for half a second, that calmed me down. Like, okay, there is literally nobody here. It is in your head. So I kept going. I made a left at the end of the hall, past a nurse's station. Little half-circle counter with a telephone still sitting there, old cord all curled up, and there was a clock on the wall behind it. One of those plain white ones with black hands, frozen at 3:19. I remember thinking that was weird, like, why that time? But clocks in dead buildings stop whenever they stop. It does not mean anything. I set it into the camera anyway because the people who watch my stuff eat those details up. It was when I decided to head toward the chapel that it got real. There was this laminated map tacked up crooked next to the nurse's station, blue lines showing wings and departments, and somebody had circled in red marker a spot labeled chapel with an arrow. The red had bled through a little. I did not really think about who had circled it until later. At the time, I was just like, cool, main event. So I followed the map down another hallway, this one wider. The floor here had more debris on it, some ceiling tiles fallen, papers scattered, like this wing caught more weather, and that is when the footsteps started again. This time there was no pretending it was echo, man. I would take one step, and there would be a second step just after it. Whenever I sped up, the other sound sped up too. Always just that one beat behind. Not overlapping, like someone was matching me on purpose. I did this stupid thing where I tried to trick it. I took 2 quick steps, and then stopped entirely. My own boots squeaked, and I felt my throat lock up because there were 3 extra steps right behind. 1, 2, 3, stopping right where I would figure arm's length from my back, and then nothing, heavy nothing, like something had leaned in and was waiting to see what I did. I could actually feel the hairs on my neck push against the collar of my shirt. I whispered into the recorder without even thinking about it. Okay, that was not me. That was not me. I swear that was not me. And then louder, listen. If that is a person, you need to say something right now because this is private property and I have permission and I am not here to get into any kind of trouble. And nobody answered. There was no voice, just the hum. That is another thing. I had not noticed the hum until then. Like when you are in a building with all the lights off and you can still kind of hear electricity in the walls, only there was no power in that place. I know because Donnie explicitly told me they had cut it years ago, but standing there I heard this low, steady sound like every fluorescent tube in the building wanted to flicker back on. It felt like it was right under the skin of the walls. I forced myself to turn around again. Slow, light sweeping, camera catching dusty chairs. More doors. Another clock stopped at some random time. Nothing else. Emptiness. But my throat kept trying to close, like I was breathing dust. I said out loud, "Just so I do not lose my mind, I am going to keep walking. If you want to follow, that is fine, but do not touch me. Do not come closer than you are." And that is crazy. I know how that sounds, like talking to yourself, but the second I said, "Do not come closer," something changed. The air pressure, or maybe just my nerves, it got heavier, like the space behind me suddenly had weight. But when I took a step, the other step came again. Just one beat behind, same distance, same rhythm. I walked like that toward the chapel, pretending the camera was the reason I kept going, telling whoever would watch later, "All right, I am hearing a second set of footsteps at a constant distance. It could be something weird with the acoustics, but it feels like it is right behind me." And my voice had gone thin, higher than usual, like a kid trying not to show he is scared. I found the hallway that led to the chapel because there was a little wooden sign hanging crooked that said "Chapel" with an arrow. Like the ones you see in older hospitals, hand-carved. One of the screws had fallen out, so it hung at an angle. I walked under it, and my light hit the double doors ahead. One was half open. There was this little stained glass window in each door. Nothing fancy, just colored panes in a cross shape, but my light made them glow dull red and blue. I stopped right before the doorway because the footsteps behind me stopped too. There was no extra step this time. No lag, just me and then nothing, and that silence pressed on the side of my head harder than the noise had. I do not know why I did what I did next. Maybe because I wanted to prove it was all in my head. I lifted the voice recorder in front of my mouth and said, "Okay, if there is any kind of energy in here, in this chapel, you can talk into this and I will hear you later." I know that sounds dumb, but that is how they do it on TV, right? So if you got something to say it. I pushed the chapel door with my knuckles and it swung open slow. No horror movie slam, just a low drag as it rubbed the floor. The smell in there was different, less dust, more old candles, and something like stale breath. The room itself was small, rows of wooden pews, maybe 5 each side. Little altar up front, a wooden cross still bolted to the wall, all of it covered in that same fine dust. But it had not fallen apart as bad as the other parts of the building, maybe because there were fewer windows. I stepped in and walked down the center aisle. My boots sounded loud on the faded carpet. That was one of the only places with carpet left, dark red, worn down in 2 tracks. And I realized the hum I had heard in the hallway did not reach in here. It was quieter, but not in a good way. My head felt like when you drive into a tunnel, that slight pressure on your ears. I sat down about halfway up on the left side, set the camera on the pew beside me, pointing toward the altar so it could catch the whole room, put the recorder on the wood in front of me, and just stared at the cross for a second. I tried to ask the usual questions people like to hear. Things like, is there anybody here who remembers working in this hospital? Did you pass away here? Do you know what year it is? I felt ridiculous. My voice sounded small and fake, and nothing happened. Nothing moved. No banging, no flickering. I sat for maybe 10 minutes. I know because I checked my watch twice. The second time it said 2:34, and I was just about to wrap it up, say something like, "All right, I am going to move on. Thank you if you tried to talk." When I heard it, not a sound from across the room or behind me, but right at the side of my head, like a mouth next to my left ear. A woman's voice, not loud, not a scream, just one word whispered in a tone like you use to keep someone from walking into traffic. She said, "Stay," not drawled out, not spooky, normal, but so close I felt air move, the little hairs inside my ear. I jumped so hard my knee hit the pew in front of me. The recorder tipped over and clacked on the wood. The camera shook because I grabbed for it. I spun to the left with the flashlight already in my hand. I do not even remember picking it up, but there was nobody there. Just the empty pew, the wall, the door half open, letting in that strip of darker dark. But my body was convinced something had been right next to me. I could still feel the shape of where it should be. Like a person in my peripheral vision, I said too loud, "I heard that. I heard that." Say it again, and nothing answered. I think I repeated that 2 or 3 times. My voice cracking. I started talking to the recorder like it was a person, saying things like, "What do you want? Why do you want me to stay? How do you even know I am here?" And the silence that followed felt like the entire building was listening back. I do not know how long I sat there after that. A few minutes maybe. My hands were shaking so bad the light made the whole room look like it was breathing. I finally grabbed the recorder and the camera and just said out loud, "All right, I am done. I am done. Thank you. I am leaving now." Which is a stupid thing to say to a room, but I said it. I backed out of the chapel instead of turning my back on the altar. I did not even realize I was doing that until I was halfway down the aisle, and as soon as I crossed under that crooked chapel sign again into the hallway, the hum came back, only louder now, like the whole place had woken up while I was in there. And the second I took a step forward, the other set of footsteps returned. Same distance behind me, same timing, one step after mine. I did not test it this time. I did not stop to see if it would stop. I just walked faster, not quite running, but more than a normal walk. I kept saying, "Thank you. I am leaving. I am heading to the exit. Thank you. I am not staying." My voice bouncing off the walls, each bounce coming back just a little late, like voices trying to learn how to be mine. I turned left where I thought the nurse's station was, but the hallway that opened up in front of me did not look right. I swear to you, it did not look like the same hall I had just walked through. It was narrower, and the tile here was different. Smaller squares, some missing, and there were no doors for the first stretch, just blank walls. My chest got tight. I remember saying out loud, "No, that is not right. That is not the way I came." I had the map in my head. I can still see it. 2 turns, then straight to the front, but suddenly the building had a different idea. The footsteps behind me did not care. They stayed with me, 1 beat behind, never closing, never falling back, like whatever was making them already knew the hallways better than I did. I thought about turning around and trying the other direction, but every time I glanced back, it looked the same that way too, just long and empty and wrong. I told myself again that it was just my nerves, that these buildings kind of all look alike. I kept moving, my hands starting to cramp around the flashlight, sweat running down my sides, and I noticed another clock on the wall ahead. Same plain white style as the one at the nurse's station, frozen at 3:19, same time exactly, and something about seeing that number again in a hallway that was not supposed to exist broke whatever little grip I still had on pretending this was normal. I started walking faster, almost trotting, my breath coming out in these stupid little gasps, and the steps behind me matched me perfectly. 1, 2, 1, 2. Always that one extra beat. Like a shadow that had weight, I passed an open doorway and caught movement in the corner of my eye, turned my head, thinking, finally I will see who it is, and the room was empty, but the bed in the far corner was rocking slightly, as if someone had just gotten up off it. No wind, no animals, just the metal frame giving this tiny squeak at the end of each little sway. I did not go in, I did not even pause. I just said, "Nope, I am not going in there. I am heading to the front," and kept going. And that is when the hallway decided to line up again. Like I took 3 more turns without thinking, and suddenly there was the nurse's station with the phone and the first 3:19 clock exactly where it should be, only now there were fresh footprints in the dust besides mine. A second trail coming up alongside me in places and then crossing behind, like someone had been pacing around while I was in the chapel, but there were no prints leading away. They just stopped at the nurse's station. Like whoever made them sank into the floor. I could feel my throat close. I almost started crying right there. A grown man in a dark hallway about to cry because of dust. I muttered to myself, "You can freak out later, just get out, just get to the truck," and I made myself walk, not run, down that last hallway, back past the rooms with the peeling green paint and the stickers and the overturned cart, and the closer I got to the front door, the more that hum faded, like somebody turning down a dimmer switch. My ears started to ring with the absence of it. I pushed the side door open with my shoulder, stumbled outside, and the night hit me like a hot towel. All the cicadas and crickets and some truck on the distant highway, just normal sound again. No hum, no extra footsteps, nobody behind me. I stood there on the cracked concrete and just breathed long and loud. My legs shaking so bad I had to lean on the rail. I turned off the camera and the recorder without even doing an outro. I did not care about the video at that point. I just wanted out of there. I walked down the steps, and that is when I heard one last thing from inside. One step, a single slow step on tile, somewhere behind that door. Like whoever had been matching me was taking one more at their own pace, now that I was leaving. I did not look back. I hooked the chain back on the gate with hands that did not feel like they belonged to me, got into the truck, locked the doors out of habit even though there was nobody around, and sat there with my forehead on the steering wheel while the engine idled. My watch said 2:51, which did not make sense based on how long I thought I had been inside. I know time gets weird when you are scared, but it felt like longer. Maybe that is nothing. Maybe it means nothing. I drove back to Carn City with the radio off, no sound but the tires and the little rattle in my dash, checking the rear view every 5 seconds like something was going to be sitting up in the bed of the truck. When I pulled into the trailer park, the first thing I did was look at my front door, half expecting it to be open, even though that made no sense. It was closed. My lights hit the faded numbers on the siding, everything exactly as I left it. I killed the engine, grabbed my backpack and the recorder and the camera, and went inside, locked the door behind me, then locked the little chain at the top. I never bother with, I put everything on the kitchen table and just stared at it for a minute. You know that feeling when you almost died on the road, like you almost got hit? And afterward, your hands shake for an hour because they just realized how close it was. That is how my whole body felt, like I had already done the dying and only the shaking part was left. I made myself a cup of coffee, even though it was almost 4 a.m. I needed something to do with my hands while the adrenaline burned out. And when they finally stopped trembling enough that I could hold the recorder without dropping it, I sat down and pressed play. I always review my audio first. It is easier than scrubbing through hours of video. I put my elbows on the table, rested my forehead on my hands, and listened to my own stupid voice talk about hallways and dust. For a while, nothing was different than I remembered, just the low sound of my boots, the echo, me narrating things for the video. You can even hear me mutter that little test at the beginning with my real name, August 22nd, 2:06 a.m. Kyle, then clearing my throat and changing it, and I remember thinking, I should cut that out later so nobody hears it. I got to the part where I first heard the extra steps behind me, and on the recording you can hear them too, clear as anything. My step, then another step, my step, then another, slightly different weight, like a heavier boot. And every time I stop, there is that one extra step after mine, and then silence. Just like I remembered, only hearing it from outside my own head made my skin prickle. It proved I had not imagined it, that there was another sound in there that did not belong to me. I kept listening, hunched over the cheap little speakers. The hum is there too, this faint low line under everything like a refrigerator running in the next room. And when I get to the chapel, you can hear my breathing change, going faster, getting higher. I ask the questions, the silence stretches. I can hear the clock ticking in there. I had not even noticed that while I was sitting in the pew, and then, right when I remember hearing it, the voice comes right against the mic, a woman's whisper, saying, "Stay," plain as someone leaning over my shoulder. I flinched, even though I knew it was coming. Hearing it in my own kitchen at that hour made my hands sweat again, and there is this little scrape right afterward where my knee hits the pew and the recorder tips, exactly like I remember. I was already freaked out by that alone, knowing I had solid proof of something talking in an empty room, but that is not the part that got inside my head. The part that did not match my memory came after. On the recording there is a pause, maybe 3 seconds, where I did not say anything, where in my mind I was just staring at the empty space beside me. And in that pause there is another sound. The first time through I thought was just my breathing, this ragged, rough inhale right next to the mic. And then, in a voice that is not mine, and not the same as the woman who said, "Stay," more like someone whose throat has been raw for days, my full name comes out, clear and slow, Kyle Scott Berryman. First name, middle name, last name. The way my mom used to say it when I was in trouble, and the way it pronounces Berryman is exactly how my granddad did, hitting the first syllable hard, Berryman. Not Bearman like some people say. It says my name like it has known it for years. I jerked back so fast my chair almost tipped. I fumbled the recorder, stopped it by accident, sat there with my heart banging in my throat, staring at nothing, every hair on my arm standing up, because I had not heard that in the chapel. I'm telling you, man, if something in there had said my name out loud at that moment, I would have run through a wall to get out. I only heard the "stay" with my own ears, but on that little gray plastic box, my entire name was burned into the file in somebody else's voice. I sat there for a long time, listening to the silence of my own trailer and the hum of my own fridge, my ears ringing, trying to talk myself into starting the file again. Like maybe I misheard, maybe I said it under my breath and forgot, maybe there is some radio interference, anything. So I hit play again and queued it up, listened to myself, take those shaky breaths, listen to the woman whisper "stay," the knee hitting wood, the recorder clacking, and then that rasping breath, like someone who smoked 3 packs a day leaning into the mic, and there it was again. Kyle Scott Berryman. No question mark, no shouting, just this low statement, like confirming attendance in a classroom. I did not say anything else on the rest of that file. I know because I scrubbed through it 3 times. After the name, I must have grabbed the recorder and the camera and headed out, because all you get is the sound of my boots, faster now, the hum getting louder in the hall, my breath going short and panicked, me muttering thanks and I am leaving without really meaning to. And every few seconds, there is this faint other noise behind my own steps, like a shoe dragging just a little out of sync. When the file ends, it clicks off mid-footfall, like I hit stop right as I went through the door, which I do not remember doing either. I thought I had let it run all the way to the truck, but it stops inside. I sat there holding that recorder like it might bite me, the plastic warm from my hand, the tiny screen reflecting my own face back in green numbers, and I realized my cheeks were wet. I had started crying without noticing it, like a kid. Quiet tears that just came because my body had run out of ways to handle what it was processing. There is this feeling you get when something impossible touches something very ordinary. And my kitchen is the most ordinary place in the world. Laminate table, 2 mismatched chairs, that stupid jar of jam still on the counter with the lid off. And in the middle of all that, a voice from a building miles away saying my full name into my hand, a name I had gone out of my way not to give it. I checked my phone to see the time, and the lock screen said 4:13. I remember staring at that number and thinking of the 3:19 on both clocks, wondering what I would do if I walked into the bedroom and the digital alarm clock by my bed now said 3:19 too. I could not make myself look at it right then. I stayed in the kitchen until dawn. Lights on, TV on with the volume off, just the moving pictures, the recorder sitting in the middle of the table like a new center of gravity for my whole life. I told myself some rational things. That maybe someone else had access to that building, maybe they put speakers in the walls and were messing with me, maybe Donnie had told them my real name as some kind of joke. But none of that explains how the voice sounded, or why the steps matched mine so perfectly, without ever catching up, or why the hallways did not line up until I decided to leave. I went back to work the next day, like a robot, did a service call at a Dollar General in Kennedy, fixed a freezer at a nursing home. All the while, every time I heard a cart squeak on tile or a nurse's shoes behind me, my whole spine would lock. I kept waiting to hear my full name again, spoken in that same scraped voice. So far, it has not happened anywhere but on that recording. But that is enough. I have not gone back to that hospital. I will not. I deleted the video files off the camera, could not stand seeing the still frames when I scrubbed through the empty pews, that crooked cross, like they were waiting for me to sit back down. But I could not bring myself to delete the audio. It is still on the recorder, and I made a copy on an old laptop that I disconnected from the Wi-Fi and shoved under my bed. I tell myself I keep it because maybe someday I will want proof that this was real, that I did not just have some kind of episode. But the truth is, it feels like throwing it away would not get rid of it. Like now that that place said my name out loud, it has a hold on it. And erasing the file would only get rid of the one part I can replay on my own terms. I do not walk down long, empty hallways anymore. If I can help it, I ask to send someone else. If we get a call from any kind of hospital, even the new ones, I make excuses. My boss thinks I am just burned out. I sleep with the TV on most nights, not for the light, but for the sound. because the quiet in the trailer at 3 in the morning feels too close to the quiet in that chapel, and when I doze off and there is a gap in whatever I am watching, when it goes to a black screen between shows, I snap awake with this gut certainty that if everything stays silent for more than a few seconds, I will hear it again, not through the recorder this time, but right next to my ear. That same word, stay, followed by my full name, like a roll call from somewhere just on the other side of the drywall. I know this all sounds like the kind of story I used to tell for fun, something to get views, to make people say they got chills in the comments. But I have not uploaded anything since that night. The channel is just sitting there, last video, weeks old, people asking in the comments when I am gonna do another explore, and I type answers and then erase them. Because how am I supposed to explain that the last time I went in alone, the place came back out with me, not as a shadow in the corner of my eye, not as some figure in a doorway, but as a voice that knows the name on my birth certificate, the one I did not give it. And that is why I am sitting out here behind this trailer at 3 in the morning, talking into my phone like it is that same recorder, hands shaking, because I need it out of my head. I need someone else to know that sometimes the scary part is not what you hear when you are in the dark place. It is what is waiting on the tape when you think you are safe back home, with the lights on and the coffee brewing and your name written on the bills on the counter, and a voice from a dead hallway saying it back to you like it has been practicing. Surface title, I don't drive out to that bridge anymore. My name's Colby Martinez. I'm from a little place outside Sanger, Texas, and I work as a concrete finisher. The kind of job where your hands never really come clean, no matter how much soap you burn through. And I know I sound messed up right now, man, but I need you to just let me talk without stopping me, because if I stop, I don't know if I'll be able to start again. So I'm just gonna tell you exactly how that day went, because it started stupid normal. I swear to God it did. It was a Friday. I remember that clear because I kept telling myself I just had to get through that pour. And then I had the weekend, and I got up around 5 before the sun, because we were supposed to meet at the yard at 6:20, and I had the same trash breakfast I always do, 2 microwave breakfast burritos from the gas station down by 455 that I bought the night before, wrapped in that cloudy plastic, and a big styrofoam cup of Dr. Pepper with too much ice. And I sat at the little table in this trailer, the one I'm behind right now, and the chair wobbles because one leg is shorter and there's this folded piece of cardboard under it. And I remember I was wearing that gray long sleeve with the blue Concrete Company logo on the chest, the one that has that darker stain on the right side, where I spilled coffee a couple months back. And I stepped outside at 5:38 because I checked the time on my phone right as I locked the door. It was that cold kind of morning where the air feels empty, no bugs, no birds yet, just that light wind that carries dust. And the gravel under my boots made the sound I grew up on, crunch, 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 walking to my truck, and nothing felt wrong. It was just another day I was already tired of before it started, and I remember thinking I should have packed a sandwich because I was already kind of hungry, just stupid stuff like that filling my head. Instead of what I should have been thinking about, which is the fact that nothing stays normal forever out here, no matter how much you want it to. So I climbed into my old white Chevy, seat ripped on the driver's side, foam popping out. I set my drink in the cup holder that always sticks, and I turned the key. And it took 2 tries to turn over, like always when the weather's funny. And the radio came on to some morning show with people laughing too loud for that hour, and I turned it down because my head hurt already. And I rolled out toward I-35 and into Denton, where the yard is. And I clocked in at 6:18. I remember because one of the guys, Roy, he said I was barely early for once. And I just shrugged and went to grab my gloves. And that's when my buddy Jace came up behind me and smacked the back of my hard hat and said, "You still scared of that bridge out past the creek, Kolb." And I told him to quit acting like a kid because I had slept like trash and didn't have the energy. But he wouldn't let it go. He started up about how his cousin from Crum went out there last weekend and nothing happened, and how all that stuff people say about the knocks and the truck shutting off is just talk. And I told him I'd driven over that old iron bridge plenty of times, and it was just rust and graffiti, nothing else. But he grinned in that way where he's already making plans for you without asking. And he said, "Fine then. Tonight, after we get paid, you and me go out there, and we do it right. You stand in the middle, you knock 3 times on the rail, you say the thing, and then you can stop rolling your eyes at everyone like you're better because you pour flat slabs. And I laughed it off. I swear I did. I told him I wasn't wasting my Friday night on some high school dare. But the thing is, I didn't say no hard enough. I didn't shut it all the way down. I just kind of let the idea sit there. And that was enough, I think. That was the first little crack where everything else leaked in. And we went on out to the site, some cookie cutter house slab over by a new subdivision on the edge of Denton. And the day itself was boring, which is what I keep coming back to. Nothing wrong, no signs. We had forms to strip, rebar to tie, mud trucks coming in. I burned my tongue on the coffee I bought at 9:15 from the same gas station chain, this one off University. And I had a ham sandwich with that cheap yellow mustard for lunch at 11:45. Sitting on a stack of 2x4s, scrolling my phone, the sun was out bright. Clouds thin like someone forgot to finish them. It smelled like wet dust and concrete dust and a little gasoline. And the only weird thing that happened before dark was my phone freezing for maybe 10 seconds on the clock app. When I checked the time near the end of the day, it just sat on 3:07 p.m., would not move, then jumped to 3:09 like it skipped. And I only remember it now because of what came later. But in the moment, I just shook it and put it back in my pocket. And we wrapped up around 4:30, did our cleanup, loaded tools, all that. I signed the sheet, got my check, and I was ready to go home, shower, and maybe watch a game. Just let my brain go soft for a while. And that's when Jace leaned against my truck door so I couldn't open it and jingled his keys and said, "So, you chickening out, or are we doing this?" And I was too tired to make a whole argument, and it felt stupid to be the one saying no to driving out to a piece of metal over a creek. So I said, "All right, one run, we go, we look, we hit the rail, and then we go get burgers." And he grinned so big, his hard hat almost fell off, and he told me to meet him at that little car wash on the edge of town around 11:30. "You gotta go late, or it doesn't count," he said. Like the dark itself was part of the rules, and I told him he was an idiot and that I'd think about it, but he knew that meant yes. And the whole drive home, I kept telling myself I was just going to text him later and back out, but I never sent that text, and I still don't know why. I got back to the trailer around 5:10, took a shower, water pressure cutting in and out like always when my neighbor runs his washing machine, put on clean jeans, the black t-shirt with the old rodeo logo, pulled on my boots again, heated up leftover chicken from the night before, ate it in front of the TV, flipping between channels. Nothing would hold my attention, nothing stuck, but at the same time, I didn't feel nervous. Not really. It was more like I was restless, like my body knew something my head didn't. I kept checking the time. First it was 8:02, then 8:41, then 9:13, and then, I swear to God, the next time I looked, it said 10:47. And I do not remember that hour in between, not a show I watched, not a phone call, nothing, like the part of the evening where I might have really decided not to go just slid out from under me. And the weird thing is my plate was in the sink and my boots were already on my feet and my truck keys were on the table like I had been getting ready the whole time. And that's when that feeling started, that heavy feeling in the middle of your chest, too late to back out, even though you still technically can. But something has its hand at your back and is just sort of nudging. So I grabbed my keys, grabbed my wallet, out of habit stuffed my folding knife in my pocket even though I knew a little blade wasn't going to fix anything if the stories were real. And I stepped outside and the air had changed. Man, it wasn't just cooler, it felt thicker. Like it had weight, like it was full of something you couldn't see. And the trailer park was quieter than I've ever heard it. The dogs that usually barked down the row were silent, no TVs leaking out through thin walls, no someone arguing into the night. Just the hum of the streetlight at the corner and that constant buzzing sound it makes, that you tune out most of the time, except now it felt like it was the only sound left. And the gravel crunched under my boots again, but it sounded wrong, too loud, like the night was emptying out space for every single step I took, and I almost turned around right then. I almost went back inside and locked the door and texted Jace some excuse about feeling sick, but I still walked to the truck, opened the door, climbed in, started it, and the radio came on to nothing. just silence, like the station was dead. I hit seek a couple times, and it skipped past a ton of numbers and just kept landing back on the same blank spot. So I turned it off, and I didn't like that feeling of having no noise, so I pulled my phone out and turned on some playlist I listen to when I work, old country stuff, just something familiar, and the sound helped a little. And I checked the time, it said 11:06, and I thought, all right, I'll be a little late to meet him, but that's fine, he can wait. And I put the truck in drive and rolled out, took the familiar way toward Denton, but then turned off toward the edge of town. That line where the subdivisions thin out and the dark fields start, those 2-lane roads with no shoulder and ditches that drop off sharp. And I met Jace at the car wash, just like he said. He was leaning against his silver Ford, hood a little dented from some old fender bender, and he pulled himself upright when I rolled in, and he banged on my window, grinning, telling me he was starting to think I bailed on him, and I told him I almost did. And he said, "Nah, man, you're here? That means you're not scared." And I lied and said I wasn't. And we stood there a minute, just 2 grown guys in work boots, in this bright rectangle of fluorescent light, surrounded by nothing but dark, the brushes and hoses hanging behind us like limp arms. And he kept talking about how it was going to be funny when nothing happened, and how I was going to buy him a burger for believing kids' stories. And I told him again I'd been over that old bridge a bunch of times, and the worst thing about it was the holes where you could see down into the water. But the whole time I was saying that my eyes kept drifting out past the pavement to where the field started, because there was something about that dark, it just looked too thick, like if you walked into it you wouldn't come back out the same way. And then he said, "All right, enough hanging around. Let's go before somebody sees our trucks and calls the cops thinking we're doing something dumb." So we decided to take just one truck to save gas. His was cleaner, so I locked mine, pocketed the keys, got in on his passenger side, tossed my phone on the dash, and he pulled out, the car wash lights falling off us in one breath like we'd pulled out of a room and into a tunnel. And the further we went, the more my stomach tightened up, because I know those roads. You drive them enough, and they feel like part of your body. And you notice when they stop feeling right. And somewhere past the new houses, where the pavement gets rougher, I realized I couldn't see the glow of Denton behind us anymore. When I looked back, just hard black and a couple lonely red lights from some distant tower, like the town had shut its eyes. And the radio in his truck was turned low to some late show, people talking about sports scores, normal chatter. But it sounded like it was coming from another room, not the speakers, and the dash clock said 11:23. Then 11:24, ticking over like normal. So I told myself everything was fine. This was just me letting stories get into my head. And I asked him, real casual, "You ever been out here this late before?" And he said, "Yeah, a couple times. Took a girl out here in high school once to scare her, and nothing happened, just some noises in the trees." And he laughed. But the way he said nothing happened didn't sound like he believed it all the way. And I caught that and put it in my back pocket, and we turned off onto that smaller road, the one that runs out toward the creek. I won't say the name, the kind, just a little county road that never got widened, 2 strips of faded paint and a bunch of patch spots, trees crowding in, branches hanging overhead like fingers, and as soon as we turned onto it, the radio cut out. Not to static, just quiet, a soft click and then nothing, and Jace frowned and tapped the volume knob, then hit it with his fist, the way you do when something mechanical is acting up. And it didn't come back. And he said, "Guess my radio finally gave up." And he tried to laugh, but it came out thin. And the only sounds left were the tires over the cracks and the hum of the engine and some insects that weren't near us. More like a wall of sound way out there somewhere. And that's when I noticed the smell starting, faint at first, like exhaust from some truck hauling old equipment, that metallic hot smell. But there wasn't anyone ahead of us or behind us. I kept checking, and it got stronger, mixing with something else, like burnt matches and standing water, and that smell when you turn over dirt that's been still a long time, all rolled together. And I rolled my window up, even though it made it hotter in the cab because I didn't want that smell on me. And Jay said he smelled it too and joked that we were gonna find some dumped animal, or maybe somebody burned trash out by the creek again. And I wanted that to be true so bad. I almost agreed out loud, just to make it feel more real. And ahead of us, the trees opened up a little, and I could see the outline of the old bridge coming up. that low iron thing over the dark slash where the creek runs. No lights, just our headlights hitting the metal, making it look wet. And Jay slowed down, way more than you need to. And then he stopped just before the bridge, put the truck in park, left the engine running, but the lights stayed on, blasting the guardrails, long shadows falling into nothing past them. And he looked at me, and I could tell he wanted me to say I was kidding, that I didn't want to do this, because then he could back out too and make it my fault. But I was stubborn and tired and starting to be mad at myself for being scared of some empty steel. So I opened the door, and that smell hit me hard, like it'd been waiting, and I stepped down onto the gravel, and it felt like stepping into a room where somebody had just been talking about you and stopped. That kind of charged quiet. And Jace came around to my side, slamming his door a little too loud, and he stood there with his hands on his hips, staring at the bridge like it might stare back. And he said, "You remember what those kids say you gotta do?" And I said, "Yeah, knock 3 times on the rail and say you're not afraid. That's the whole big ritual, right?" And he nodded, and I walked toward the center of the bridge, boots on that steel deck, hollow noise. With every step, the creek below us, just a black stripe. No movement, no frogs or bugs chirping like there should have been, just that low, deep kind of quiet that presses on your ears. And I stopped near the middle, where the rails are rusted and tagged up, and I put my hand on the cold metal, colder than it had any right to be in that kind of night. And for a second I thought I felt it move under my palm, like something breathing. But I told myself it was just my own pulse, and I turned back to look at Jace to make some joke about how dumb this all was, and I saw his face in the headlights, washed out and tight around the mouth, and he lifted his phone like he was going to record and then put it down again, like he thought better of it, and he shouted, "Go on, do it." And so I did, man. I raised my fist, and I knocked 3 times on that rail. Real solid, knuckles stinging, each hit ringing out down the metal, and I said, loud enough that my voice echoed against the iron, "I'm not afraid of anything out here." And as soon as the last word left my mouth, I wanted to take it back. I swear to God I did. It felt like I just signed something without reading it. And for a second, nothing happened. Just the sound of my own breathing and the ticking of his truck cooling in the night. And then we both heard it, clear as anything, like it was right under our boots. One heavy step, then another, a slow pacing under the bridge where there is nothing solid, seriously, like something with weight was walking around in the dark space between the water and the steel. Each step timed just a little off from my own heartbeat, enough to make me feel sick. And Jace laughed, too high, said, probably just some big fish hitting the supports, but his voice cracked in the middle, and he didn't sound like he believed himself at all, and the smell got stronger, thick, burning the back of my throat, like hot rubber and rotten eggs and wet stone. And then, under the sound of those steps, there was this other sound, a slow drag, like something rough against concrete, not loud, but steady. And I called out, "Hey, who's down there?" Thinking maybe some other idiots were hiding, trying to scare us. And the steps stopped, just stopped, dead, and the drag stopped too. And the quiet that came after was worse than the noises, because it didn't feel empty, it felt like something holding its breath. And that's when the truck moved, his truck sitting there on the near side of the bridge in park with the brake on. It rocked, not like a gust of wind. There was no wind. The leaves on the trees were still. It rocked like something big had shoved it from behind. A hard bump that made the suspension squeak, and the headlights jumped, shadows stretching and shrinking like something had just passed between them and the trees and then wasn't there anymore. And Jay swore and ran back to it, checking his back bumper. And I was still in the middle of the bridge, frozen, because I could feel something now, not under my feet, but right at the edge of my vision. Like if I turned my head too fast, I'd see something standing just outside the cone of the headlights. And my skin prickled all over, and I wanted to run, but my legs felt like they were sunk in wet cement. And I heard Jay shout, "No way, no way." And I forced myself to move, to walk back toward the truck, and every step I took made that metal ring, like it was calling out. And when I got close enough to see the back of his truck, my stomach turned, because there on the dusty metal of the tailgate were 3 lines, side by side, long, deep, too clean for rust, going straight down, like something with 3 hard points, had been dragged slow from top to bottom, and the dust around them was gone, burned off or wiped away. And in the cool night air, those lines were giving off a weird haze, like heat does on asphalt in August. Faint but there, and I put my hand near them, and it was warm, warmer than the rest of the metal, and there was no one else out there. No footprints, no tire tracks fresh except ours. Nothing. And Jace kept saying it had to be some trick, somebody had to have done that back at the car wash or earlier, but the dust pattern was wrong. You could see where our hands had smudged the tailgate before, in patches, and these marks cut right through all that, clean. And I said, we need to go, now. I don't care what you think this is, we need to go. And as soon as I said go, something down in the creek bed made a sound. Not a word, not an animal noise either, just this low, long exhale, like air being let out of something huge. And I heard water movement even though the creek had been barely more than a trickle when we drove past it in daylight the week before. And that broke whatever was holding my feet. I just turned and yanked the passenger door open and got inside, slammed it, locked it, and Jace jumped in his side and jammed the key. But the engine was already running. We never shut it off. That was the worst part. It was like we had never been the ones in control there. The truck had just been waiting, and he threw it into drive and hit the gas, and for a second, I thought we weren't gonna move. There was this feeling of pushing against a wall of air, like something was holding the truck by the back bumper, just enough to keep us from rolling forward. And then it let go all at once, and the tires chirped, and we shot ahead and over the bridge, and as we rolled off the other side, both of us heard 3 knocks from somewhere we could not place. Not under us, not outside. It was like they came from inside the cab, in the bones of the truck. 3 solid taps, in the same rhythm I'd hit that rail, and Jace yelled without words and drove way too fast for that road. Tires, catching the edges of the broken pavement, and I kept looking back even though I didn't want to see anything. And the weirdest part was not seeing something following us. It was seeing the same stretch of road behind us over and over, the same bent road sign on the right, the same leaning fence post on the left, like we were not getting farther away. No matter how fast he pushed that pedal, the speedometer hit 60, then 70. Too much for that road, the truck bouncing, and still it looked like the same 10 yards over and over in the rear view, and I started counting my breaths to keep from losing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I glanced at the clock on the dash and it said 11:24, which didn't match anything because we'd already been out there long enough for it to be later. I know it, but it just sat there. 11 to 24, glowing that soft green, and the air inside the cab got colder, like we'd turned on the air full blast, except the vents weren't blowing, and my breath started fogging a little, and Jace's too, 2 little clouds in the dark. And then, just like that, the road changed. Like somebody had flipped a scene. The trees fell back, the fields opened up wider, and I could see the highway lights way off in the distance again. And when I looked in the side mirror, the bent sign and the leaning fence were gone, replaced by just long black nothing the way it's supposed to be. And the smell, that hot sulfur, exhaust, rotten water smell, it faded, slow, like it was being pulled backward through the rear glass, and the radio clicked back on by itself, picking up in the middle of some commercial like it had never cut out, and the dash clock jumped from 11:24 to 12. 7 inches, 1 blink, no in between, and Jace eased off the gas like he just realized how fast he was going. And for a minute, we didn't say anything, just drove, the sound of the engine normal again, the world feeling soft around the edges, and then he said, "I'm not gonna say anything to anyone about this, because they'll think we're lying or crazy." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And then we both tried to start making jokes, little ones, about how we'd scared ourselves, how those marks on the tailgate probably had some explanation, but neither of us offered any actual explanation. We just sort of trailed off. And when we got back to the car wash, I practically ran to my truck, didn't look at my mirrors, didn't look at the sky, just unlocked it, got in, started it, and drove home. And when I pulled into the trailer park, I sat there for a second with the engine running, lights off, hands on the wheel, and I didn't want to get out because the space between the truck and my door felt too open, like something could step into it while I wasn't looking. But I finally forced myself, grabbed my stuff, got inside, locked the door, locked it again, checked the windows, pulled the curtains tight even though they're thin, and I checked the time on my phone. It said 1:33 a.m., and I should have been exhausted. I'd worked a full day and then wrecked my nerves out on that road, but I couldn't lie down. I just walked circles in this little place, listening, expecting some knock, some scrape, something, and nothing happened that first night. Not really. I heard some creaks from the trailer settling the way it always does. Little pops, little groans. But every single one made me jump, and when I did finally drift off in the chair near the door around 4 a.m., I woke up with my neck screaming and my heart racing from some dream I couldn't grab onto. Just water and metal and that smell, and I went to work the next day like nothing was wrong. Told myself that if I skipped a Saturday shift, it would mean I was letting it win. And when I got to the yard, Jace was already there, and we just nodded at each other, neither of us bringing up the bridge. And all day we worked like normal. But every time something scraped metal on metal, a shovel on the truck bed, rebar dragging, the mixer starting up, my chest clenched because it sounded too much like something under that deck walking around. And I figured, fine, give it a couple weeks, it'll fade, you'll forget the details. That's what happens with everything else. But it didn't. It got worse in a different way, quieter, and about 3 days later is when I knew it hadn't stayed out there. Because I was in my truck after work in the grocery store parking lot, checking a list my mom texted me because I was gonna stop by her place in Croom, and I felt the truck move just a little. That same shove from behind, not enough to set off any alarms, just a bump. And I looked in the rear view, expecting to see someone had tapped me with their bumper, but there was no one there. Empty space behind me, cart corral farther back, no cart near me, and I got out, walked around, looked at the back, and my breath caught, because those 3 long marks on Jace's tailgate, I saw them again, not carved, not burned, but traced light in the dust on my own tailgate now, shallow, like someone had drawn them with a finger, 3 straight lines top to bottom, and I wiped them away fast, like there was something that could stain, and my hand shook. And I told myself some kid did it while I was inside, but I hadn't gone inside yet. I'd just been sitting there, and then that night, sitting in this same chair, I heard something under the trailer near 3 a.m. The time I'm talking into this phone right now, 3 solid knocks in the middle of the floor underneath me, in that same rhythm. Again, not pipes, not the wind, just knock, 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 and all the little hairs on my arms went up, and I didn't move. I didn't even breathe for a few seconds, just sat there, listening to the quiet after, and then there was this slow sliding sound, like something heavy moving over dirt, circling under the frame, and I wanted to tell myself it was a raccoon or a stray dog, but I've lived here long enough to know what those sound like, and this wasn't that. It was too deliberate, like it knew exactly where my bed was, where my chair was, where I kept my boots, and I didn't sleep at all that night. And when the light finally came up, faint around the curtains, I went outside and looked under the trailer, careful, got down on my stomach in the gravel, and there was nothing there, no animal, no footprints, just some disturbed dirt in a pattern I couldn't make sense of. Long, shallow grooves where something had moved but not left a clear shape, and it was then I realized I had never asked Jace if anything followed him home, and I didn't want to. Because if he said yes, I'd know for sure it wasn't just me, and if he said no, I'd know it liked me more, and I don't know which is worse. So I stopped taking routes that went anywhere near that road, stopped going out after dark unless I had to, started parking my truck closer to my door like a couple extra feet would help, and I still tried to act normal around everyone, laughing when some of the younger guys brought up stories about the old bridge and how you could knock and hear something answer. But inside my chest, it felt like someone was knocking from the inside, tapping on my ribs, waiting for me to say it out loud, to acknowledge that we had gotten an answer. And the proof is in all these little things that stack up that nobody else sees. Like how sometimes when I'm driving home and the sun's going down and I cross any bridge, even just one of those little concrete ones over a drainage ditch, the radio cuts out for exactly 3 seconds right in the middle, then comes back, or how my phone battery drops from 40% to 3 right at the moment I pass over, then jumps back up when I'm off, or how I keep finding that same smell in places it shouldn't be, like in the middle of the day in the break room at work, that hot, sulfur, standing water stink, curling at the edges of the room for a second and then gone. And everyone else acts like they don't notice, keeps eating their sandwiches, watching their phones, while I'm sitting there gripping my paper cup so hard it crinkles. And I can't go fishing with my cousin anymore down at the river because the sound of water hitting the rocks under the bank sounds too much like something walking back and forth under my feet. And I changed the route I take to my mom's house so I don't have to see the sign for that road. I go the long way now, for an extra gas I can't really afford, just so that name doesn't roll past my window. And I haven't talked to Jace in 2 weeks. Not really. He stopped cracking jokes on site. He keeps his headphones in more. And the other day I caught him staring at the underside of one of our cement trucks like he was listening for something in the metal. And when I walked up, he jumped and asked real sharp what I wanted. And I said nothing, just grabbing a broom. And he looked embarrassed, but also like he hadn't slept in a while, dark under his eyes. And I almost told him about the knocks, about the marks, about the smell. But his jaw was clenched, like if I said that word bridge, he was going to crack. And I don't want to be the one that pushes him over whatever edge he's on. So I keep it. I hold it here instead, in this stupid little phone screen at 3 a.m. behind a trailer with thin walls, whispering like that thing can't hear every word. And I know you're thinking, man, just move, just leave. But it's not that simple. My money's tied up in too many little bills. And besides, it doesn't feel like the kind of thing that stays put, like it belongs to the land or the water. It feels like it's attached to the moment, to the act, to that stupid sentence I said while knocking, like I wasn't signing a contract, I'm not afraid of anything out here. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. Not the footsteps, not the smell, that line. Because that was the lie. That was the invitation. And I know it heard me. I can feel it in the way certain sounds hit me now, the way certain shadows fall wrong, stretched in the wrong direction from where the light is actually coming from. Like under the edge of my truck on bright afternoons, there's a bit of shade that seems to lean toward me instead of away. And I flinch at any knock, anytime someone hits a countertop to get my attention, even if it's just once, because my body is waiting for the other two. And sometimes late, like tonight, I sit out here behind the trailer, back against the metal, gravel digging into me through my jeans, phone in my hand, trying to talk this out like saying it all might make it smaller, and I tell myself I'm just being dramatic, tired, stressed from work, and then I hear it again. Under all the other sounds, the far-off highway noise, the buzz of that streetlight, the faint yip of some dog, under all that, there's this soft, slow movement under the ground, like something pacing not in a straight line but in a tight circle, waiting for me to step out of where the porch light hits and into the dark, just a little bit farther than last time. And I can't prove any of this, not to anyone who wasn't there. I don't have videos or recordings. Jace won't talk about it. I can't take you by the hand and show you what's under that bridge, because even if we went there again, I don't think it would act the same way twice. It already got what it wanted. It already knows my name. It heard me say it. It heard me brag I wasn't afraid. And now the proof is, in all the places I refuse to go, I don't drive that road. I don't cross that bridge. I don't stand on metal grates over water. I don't walk under big iron beams late at night. I don't go near car washes on the edge of town after 11:30. I quit taking late pours that might run after dark. I keep the radio on low even when it cuts out, because the silence feels like when it was there, listening. And I still wake up most nights around 3:14 a.m. without an alarm, heart racing like it's heard something a second before the rest of me did. And half the time when I jerk awake like that, the clock on my phone is frozen, the number's not moving for a few breaths. Like time itself is waiting to see what I'm gonna do next before it keeps going. And when it starts again, there's this little click in my ears, like someone tapping metal 3 times far away. And I know if I ever get stubborn again, if I ever say out loud that I'm not scared, that will be the night it stops pacing under the floor or behind the bumper and finally steps into the light where I can see it. And I don't want that. I don't want to know what has that kind of weight without leaving footprints. I don't want to see what can cut into steel without making a sound. So I sit here and talk instead, tell you every small dumb detail, what I ate, what I wore, when I clocked in, what the air felt like, Because if I make it ordinary again, maybe it'll have to let go, maybe it'll decide there's nothing special about me, but every time I think that, I feel that same pressure on the back of my truck or the floor under my boots, just enough to remind me that normal is gone. That out on that old road where the trees lean over and the creek runs black, I knocked on something that knows how to knock back, and it has not finished answering yet.